Uh-oh. We're about to go to the next round.
Meow. Meow.
The stream is back, but somehow I broke it. I don't know, man. I do have a lot of stuff going on at the same time. Well, the stream doesn't drop every time I hit a MIDI note. That's good. I mean, those things could have been correlated for no reason. All right. Glad to be back. We've got 2 viewers, and yeah, let's hit the top of the mark. It's 30 minutes into the stream. I feel like we're flying well. I got all the beats to hit. It's like driving a semi almost, or a Type 9 in Elite Dangerous. It's like driving a bus. It's a party bus. No, and I got my friends on it. Do I have my friends on it? I gotta see what's true. So, at the very least, friends is Into the Night with Incomitatum. Episode 35, we're making a joyful noise tonight. Taking a second out because I'm having some internet issues, or we got 4 viewers. Yeah, all right. So today I had a wonderful day. I got to share some of the artwork with some of my neighbors. Not that I actually gave it to them, all that is to say, I shared its existence, and they were really receptive to it. Some people down at the park, some people on my path. And for those veterans of my stream, Linsku says he's got to run to school, but he'll be back in 15 to 25 minutes. That's awesome, man. The fact that you would even spend some of your time with me at all is great. So yeah, I got my products I'm about to set up. I don't know if you guys got to see today. Oh, I should share that on Instagram. But today's Instagram, I want to shout out 2 of my new followers today. I got to go from 111 to 119 followers, all thanks to Vincent and Musical Hernandez. Anytime somebody's got the word musical in their stuff, it's pretty great. Vincent was great to talk to. I love it when somebody is a conversationalist in so much as they ask cool questions. They keep the ball going. They're genuinely inquisitive. I try and be. Seems like these things aren't going to keep auto playing. That's okay. It's all right. Uh-oh. So yeah, but here's what it's like to go down to the park today. And I'm going to read you what I wrote. I said, on Thursday, I do my best to radiate a joyful, boyish noise. That was not it. Let's get out of this. Oh yeah, we need to just go back to the start. It's okay. I do my best to generate a boyish noise. I see this as a mandate and permission to enjoy creation. Yeah, and allow yourself to being receptive to a message. What do I have to learn today? As I said, cry to your bones that you are your own master. Have courage in your actions. This was before I even know what was going to happen. But then, and I set this up, you'll see my hashtags, choose your perspective. I sat at the park so that I'm lined up with the mouth of it, and everything is all isometric and cool. I chose this threshold. And I realized one of the messages I received today that was nice is, you think that you're going to, sometimes there are places where the veil is thinner and you're going to go from one place to the next. You're going to go down into it. And you say, oh, maybe it's this thorny expanse forward. But if I go through here, I'm sure to find wonderment and adventure. People are ignorant, and I received this today. They think this is a door. This crossing of the threshold. And sometimes it is, but most of the time, you're gonna find, like I found out at the park, that this music makes me happy. It's not a door. The verge is a runway. And you can't be all mopey and looking down with your shoulders slumped when you're going on this thing. Like, if you're looking for magic and you travel with intent through this area, you've got to hear the music. How often are the stones spaced out? Look for the signs. Does it move at a clip, a waltz? I've been whistling the Zelda theme through my, let's listen to this. Tonight's music has been brought to you by Mario Paint, the original soundtrack. Many a cold Saturday night spent playing this. I realize that in society, even if you're going to go back to building your own tribe out of tribalism, marching music has its place, and that being the bard is important, even though he gets laughed at. But, he generates boosts for the rest of the party in ways that a lot of other people don't understand. Marching music, again, that 3/4 waltz, pentameter, I don't know if that's a word. All right. Majora says, and I love the name man, that his music vibe was pretty weird finishing the book, so it's nice to hear other things. I won't lie. What do you consider pretty weird? Let me in on the sauce. What's your where do you think that your tastes run counter to the rest of the norm? Those normies. I'm looking for Dark World theme. Legend of Zelda Dark World. This is just because I don't want to put on my other stuff. But yes, 25th Extraditionary. No, we're just going to do this shit from the Super Nintendo because it's less likely to get. I want to do a remix of this sometime. So yeah, let us talk about, now that we are after the 30-minute mark, what are we here to do today? Well, I make joyful noises. But I want to, let's see, what did I do today? I took production photos. I need to cut corners. And some kid remarked at this, and it's a real thing. I gotta show you guys. Where's the one that I really liked? Yeah, I probably have to go back down to the park and set up better photos. This was just faffing about. But today, it worked out well that I went down there and I took my corner cutter. And even the kids noticed that the same design with the corners cut versus uncut is a million times just sexier for reasons that the human monkey mind doesn't completely understand. They also ship a little bit better. Truth be told, this blunted corner takes to bumping around in packaging easier. You know, it's not a hard edge to bend and curl. So I already did package testing. I did that. Let's say redo photos. They did not turn out well. Maybe I'll need to take the really sexy camera, of course. What do we got? But, oh yeah, the one file that I don't have open is the file that I made for, and let's turn on some real music finally. Who's here? Majora, are you still present? He waits for an answer. Majora has said that his music taste is not so much weird, but, you know, lots of moody, dramatic music from Indian and Middle Eastern, you know, just to get him into the setting. And that's cool, Majora. I was talking to one of the little dudes today about set and setting and how as a designer, and, you know, when you consider what the word production means, you really have to actually craft that. It's why, and I'll go ahead and bring it up, but and in the headspace that I've been trying to live in as I move my art forward as a craft and fulfill some of my commissional obligations, it's why I have pin boards, because it's kind of like a pin board is like a mixtape of the things that you want to help set the vibe. And so I don't know, Majora, if you've seen my pin board for Please Call Stella, but this is the kind of thing. And in fact, this vibe here, to bring it back and around and forward and up and down, really informed this picture here. It's like, all right, well, maybe I don't make a Stella picture because the way that commission is set up is I don't have a lot of energy to keep doing concept art, essentially, pre-production. If I had more of a budget, I would do pre-production till the cows came home, but it doesn't. So as it stands, how can I do art for myself that still feels like it could be part of that world? Oh, so the other thing I'm rambling on about, Majora, you're here. The house number is 8. You can stick with it. That would be lame. But what is Majora's number between 1 and 21 tonight to help spin the wheel? So yeah, am I all over the place? Not really. At least it's not a project. The project is make art. So that's not so bad. Here are some of the ideas I've had. Some blueberry gobbler. This one is actually about verges. This is about the crate, which is a rune I made up. This here kind of became wind. Here I'm realizing, 12? Majora says. Fine, we hit play. And 12. Cold Silver by Kevin MacLeod. Yeah, we'll turn this up. Now we have a soundtrack to vibe to. This has a bit of an Irish lilt to it, so I don't mind it. Also, if you're down, I'm here earlier than I was last week, so I could totally chat in the stream with a voice call. I would love that. It has to wait 2 seconds because I should have at 30 minutes actually gone and drank some coffee and some other crap. So we're about to go to break, and then we can talk about that. Let me just do that. Let's hit the dank hydration break with the puppo. Oh yeah, that's great. And then Majora might join us. I needed to get another file open. Why am I so scatterbrained? Oh yeah, before I go, I'm looking for an old drawing I did in 2018 called Corn Liquor. It was in response to a documentary I'd watch. Good Liquor. Here we go. That was actually by Jackass. What was his name? The dude from Jackass. Anyway, let me show it to you real quick. because it's the first thing like this I did, but I never got it printed. How dumb am I? This is very much like the cards I've been doing, friends. What do you think of this, Majora? I'll just leave it right there for a time. Alright, be right back, my friends. Alright. Yeah, Majora, scholar and gentleman, if you would reach out to the masses, spread the word that I'm streaming tonight. If you got friends, family, other dingbats like you and I, who would be receptive to being here. Alright, so we're going to take a break. I will return. This has been Into the Wild with Incomitatum, episode 35. If nothing else, I hope that you can read between the lines and understand that this is all just joyful noise. Make some joyful noise. Keep your heart right. All right. Thank you, friends, for having me in your lives. This is Into the Wild with Incomitatum, episode 0.35, it says. In the Twitch, anyway. This is my joyful noise to you tonight, at least. We'll see what comes up next week. Switch back here. Yeah, my friend, this inspiration came to me. I realized that I needed to find my corn liquor picture. I did this a million years ago. But I got to watching it as I was becoming more open-minded about, less authoritarian, I guess I could say. And I watched a documentary on one of the last great moonshiners that the FBI and the federal government just gave him hell. Made his life miserable. He ended up being able to negotiate some house arrest, and finally he took his own life in his Jeep at his favorite spot on his property, but just because he knew and was good at moving moonshine. What a strange concept. In general and in total. But I have a couple things. What it's for tonight, Majora, is for me to grab onto it and see if it fits in this card format well. Because let's even pop back over here. What is this? 8x5. Am I a genius? Almost. Can we get shrunk? Can we shrink it down? Hey, friends. Oh, this will do it for real. This should be the real, so 8x5. I don't know why I chose that. But can we manipulate it into this shape? Because everything I'm doing presently in my life has to be these A2 sized cards. And that's the other way that I figured out that some artists get through their craft in so much as if you target this for your drawing, you can get away with a lot because the post office loves to send this format. It'll get you there. I want to play that song. I hate this sleepy time shit. I'm the master of my own vibe tonight. Sorry, Kevin McLeod, but soaring is off the list. The number for tonight is 12. Every time we gotta spin the wheel, we hope we land somewhere inspirational at the very least. At the very least. Alright, so I'm gonna keep fitting this to my card format and see, with just a little bit of finagling, it's looking beautiful. So, what the hell does that mean? Ooh, what's that mean then? That means that I don't have to do too much to turn this into something else I'm selling immediately. Peesh? Capiche? So, how you doing, Majora? I'm back, by the way. Oh, let's go to break for just a second, because I never actually drank this water I poured for myself. And we're going to figure out the Discord thing and if that works well here in just a second on Into the Wild.
Okay, there's one. Hello?
Hello! And how are you? Let me do something around here. Let me mute myself.
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, I don't use being put on the spot like that. uh, I am trying to be at least a little bit quiet. I'm also on push to talk right now. Okay.
This thing. And we're back. Look at us. I can push 5 buttons in a row. It's not too bad. So what are we doing tonight? Well, while I was at the park today, I was inspired. I remembered that my sister-in-law really loved this corn liquor picture I did a million years ago. So I want to bring that up, but I also might want to repost it. So it's good. I'm going to actually save this file in with all my other good shit. Because, yeah, man. So, we are joined today by my friend. And I have a love for the Zelda series, so the fact that he would pick this as his name. We are joined by Majora. I don't know if he ever got his mask back. I'm gonna kick that dude in the nuts.
I don't even know. I've had this username for so long at this point. I don't know if I could ever really know how many times I've been asked about my math.
Rock on, dude. Do you just lean into it now as a result, though?
Yeah, by this point, yeah.
You should. I was talking to my friend Wobbly. He has a great show. In fact, it is the very fact that I was on his show that encouraged me to start doing a Twitch at all. I'm like, okay, if nothing else, it'll prove me consistent. So, but he was talking the other day about how we were talking about OCs, because at some point tonight I might even need to draw a kind of character that I've been thinking of. And he said he didn't know, because he calls his show the Wobbly Python Drawing Circus, and he goes by the name Wobbly. He's like, well, hey, does this even count? Because it's kind of me. And I'm like, yeah, I think there's definitely something true or respected or understood about what I would call clown face, but it's really about, this is me performing time. So it's like, if you bump into me on Tuesdays and I'm eating some tacos, I might be Andrew, but here I'm Incomitatum. So it's not all some bullshit, but it is to say, depends on what kind of vibe and character you want to put off. Just like you were talking about the music earlier. This shit that's playing presently is not too creepy or too down tempo. It's just on the cusp. So, like when I'm putting my show together, I admit that I'm also playing America's Got Talent, and if I don't like a song, it can go straight in the toilet. So how you been? I've never talked to you, but it's great to have you on the show, kind of steering the vibe. I love everything Majora. Presently, I'm trying to put kind of a, what am I thinking of? Like a Miyazaki feel to my work. Do you follow that some? If I say that?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Did you get to see this? And I'll wait for the stream to catch up. I don't know if you're... Yeah. But did you get to see this picture I was working on of kind of like the 4 friends hanging out at their roadhouse?
Yeah.
Now that I got you here on the spot, I put a lot of time and work into that last night. Truth be told, sometimes I can just put my head down and do a thing and get no feedback. The only feedback is the loop I feel from my muse at night. So what do you think about this? What are you feeling? What do you like? What do you dislike? What do you have questions about? Ask me anything.
One of the... I'm not much of, I guess, I wouldn't say a critic, I guess, but I know one of the things when I look at in stuff with a lot of environment going on and a lot of background scenery is the stuff going on in the background can tell a lot about what's going on what's going on in whatever was drawn.
Yeah, and I'm gonna simplify your idea down, but it's not to make fun of you because it's something that my wife and I were just talking about because, she works with kids. But I think if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that you appreciate being informed by context clues. Those things in the background help amplify that vibe. What do you think about this background? What do you think about the background to the particular image that I?
Well, it gives off a kind of I'm not really sure if I have a word to put on it exactly. It gives off kind of a, I guess you could say, a sort of fantastical kind of vibe. I don't know if that's quite the right word I'm looking for, but
Yeah,
like
at
like
some
a
point,
more
I realized that I had to lean into a damn buzzword, and it was in college when I was pitching to join a project that if it went well, the college dean and his friends were actually going to put the bill for us to actually go to a game convention. It's like, all right, don't fuck this up, kids, and the college will sponsor you. And so in my proposal, I used the word whimsical. And I haven't hated saying that because Richard Feynman is like, you gotta teach some shit to see how you feel about it. I believe that a human, forgive me, when you're sitting with just your own soul, you need to say some stuff that you believe and take stock of it. Am I still that person, or is that lame? Do I know a better way now, or was that just a phase I was going through? All of these things are valid questions to ask yourself. But that is to say, as I sit with the word whimsical, I have found I'm willing to adopt it. I don't hate it. It doesn't make me feel dirty for using it. Yeah, my whimsical art. Yeah. So, if you could use adjectives to describe your books, what vibe do you hope that they put off? Like, one of the things that if I get to lean back into dealing with clients for my business more, and I'll get some yucks for it, but I really do want to challenge people. It's like, what would your theme song be? What would your company's jingle be? What radio station would your theme song come on? That informs a lot too, right? Who's your crowd? Who's your target demographic? Majora, and I guess as an ancillary question to that is, Majora, how do you get any analytics on the kind of people that are buying your books or reading your stories?
I have I guess you could compare it to like tonight's stream, where I just have like a very small dedicated number of people who I can just kind of trust to look over my work, and it's just one of those things where it's not enough to really inform me of anything other than what a couple of people I know like, but it's enough to get feedback, which I'm always going to appreciate.
And as a thespian, I will say that there's real value in finding your crowd and pandering to them. I don't think that, one carny to another, there's no dishonor in that. Let's just speak to it willingly. I found the people that I jive well, they like my act, or craft. I don't want to speak I want to speak plainly, but I don't want to speak disrespectfully. But yeah, they like me, and that's kind of when I went to my hippie convention, and they said, "We love your art and your vibe. Go put forward prints." I'm doing it, but it's like I'm gonna step tepidly into this water. I've measured it. I walk a tight steel beam because my father blessed me with an engineer's mind, and my mother damned me with an artist's mind, and the twain are mixed up in my skull, and that's great. It really informs the way that I would walk my path, and you're gonna see that here. Whimsical people and environments, but I could tell you about the measurements that would go into this place back here, and we could build it if you had the stuff lying in your backyard. I mean, so yeah, that's part of my joyful noise. Whimsy, I guess, is the word we're adopting today, kids. The gnomes tell me that I might be a little hot in the mix on the music, or it could just be this song. All right. So Majora, what's good? What's going on in your life? So today I prayed for rain down at the park while I played my weird flute, and on Thor's day I was gifted some rain, a beautiful lightning storm that I didn't even know was in the forecast because I don't pay attention to forecasts anymore. I don't have a use for professional liars. I can make that shit up myself. Though there is something to be said. Even my religion says to look to the birds. And I was talking to some little dudes today about augurs from Roman times and how the basic soothsayers were accepted in society as those who could know the will or the pattern simply by watching what the flocks of birds were doing. As right as the concept of almanac was becoming a thing. I'm a nerd. I'll talk forever too because it's actually a major part of the show if you don't chime in, Majora. So, but take the reins.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just not. I'm a bit heavily introverted, so it doesn't come the easiest for me.
Oh man, I totally appreciate that. I was a drama kid, and I was telling a little dude today that I only really made it as far as I did by virtue of one of my favorite movies in the world is Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And as a military brat who had to move all the time, that movie taught me that if you can make people laugh, they will at least find a place for you. So they'll keep you around. They won't put you out on the iceberg this week. At least.
I mean, I talked about, I've just been, I dedicated my day to just sitting and punching out the rest of the book I'd been working on because I just wanted to get it done and not have to worry about it.
Dedication, that's a good word. Yeah, right there. I tell you what, it takes that. Because, as much as we hear the thing like, see, some of the things I'm doing now are push-ups. And I think you and I talked about having a vignette or something to do as push-ups. But you know that you're like, well, that's not the mode I'm in, man. I need to get this done. And it's like, okay. So this is actually shut up and color. Put your head down and just punch out words. Are you someone who feels that disconnect, rightfully so, in my opinion, that writing and editing are two different demons?
I'd say so. I've lost. This is probably not the greatest thing to admit, but I have, for a few reasons, just kind of lost a lot of my motivation to sit down and edit. But I have never really lost my motivation to sit down and write.
Cool.
And I feel like that's pretty telling on how separate those two things can be.
Yeah, I value having you around tonight. It's just good to have somebody to fucking chew on the concept of storycraft with. I had some little dudes in the street who I feel, and I asked him, oh, do you like Stranger Things? Yeah, we loved the shit out of that. Cool. And I'm getting them to the idea of group hallucination and maybe if you're cool, because I'm learning what I needed to learn though over the past month was pearls before swine and what that metaphor really is. And it's like, all right, well, 13's a man in my culture, so before that the boy's just long pig, and that's fine. But really, he's going to have an attention span and pay attention to you and respect you if he's just a little bit older and has learned these things from his elders. So it's like, okay, those are the kind of people I want to start actually having meaningful conversation with, because I also got to know where my boundaries are. It's weird because my wife is a teacher, and I have this kind of want to teach the things I've learned, but I don't have much of a experience actually doing it. So yeah, that whole what's the actual craft versus the push-up? Well, I believe that being a dumb theater kid was what afforded me the ability to iterate on that ability to keep the ball in the air and talk. And some of it is that magician's bullshit of just... The other day I was having to freestyle. Yeah, because my bones told me to. And then my wife and I were talking about it. So there was a thing going on. And I wish I could recreate it, because it's not half as cool me telling you it. But when there's a beat going on, you feel like oh yeah, I'm going to throw down some shit. So what I did is I took the chill kid approach. Probably this dude up here, because if all these dudes are like the Ninja Turtles to me, I'm going to color them differently. You're going to see their personalities. This is the 4-man band right here. But this kid here, kind of like from the Get Down, he would know that if you're going to wade into some shit, you do it slowly. So if you got a beat and you're going to try and do it, you don't have to match the beat. Go on the halftime, if not the every time. And now you've bought yourself some time to find the rhyme. I guess I just did that. But, yeah, that wasn't too bad. All right. Yeah, ideally I would turn this crank enough that if you like these characters, Majora, contrast and story is in Polaroids. What do you think of the idea of montage? Do you use it as a vehicle in your writing? He pauses to let Majora actually speak now.
I'm not sure what exactly you mean. Sorry.
Okay, so from a storycraft and cinema perspective, montage is when I lay down a bunch of ideas real quickly to show the passage of time or quick growth, but also bam, 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 look at these. Like, a training montage. It's a French word.
Oh, I see.
That means, I think it means story in motion. But as I've helped people with story crafting and even doing intimate one-on-one story crafting sessions, I say, if you're having trouble getting out a whole scene, barf me out some 3 Polaroids.
I haven't had to very often.
Okay.
I did do it recently. Usually when I do anything resembling montage kind of things with my writing, it's at the end of a story. To sort of
show like where the chips
just kind
fell,
of
just to wrap things up quickly.
Yeah.
And
yes,
the old man, right.
Or to tie it to like a separate, more significant event afterwards to emphasize that more and take the focus less off the more menial loose ends and the less dramatic features of it.
Well, look, and my wife would wake up and praise me for saying this, but look, I played the shit out of some Super Mario World, and what happens when you beat that? Have you done that, Majora? The Super Nintendo.
I have.
No? Anyway.
Mm-hmm. No, I have not.
You haven't. Okay, all right. Well, it's a montage. It's fun because then the camera, and this is advanced for a Super Nintendo game, but they walk you back through all the worlds you played through, because every world has a different theme, and then they show you about, the 4 monsters that came with that theme pack, because every world had a different theme, and then they tell you what their damn names were, because you were been fighting them the whole game, but maybe you didn't have Nintendo Power, and you didn't know what their names were, and that stuff wasn't in the manual, but it's like, let's wrap this up, but also have all the actors come out on stage and do a bow at the same time, too. It's like, I get that. You can, okay, I see. Intellectually, Majora is saying that it combines well with the vehicle that is Epilogue. Yes?
I'm sorry?
That the notion of montage combines well with the vehicle of epilogue.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it's just kind of hard. There's a bit of cutting out sometimes, so
Oh,
I
that's a
can't
bummer.
always.
Yeah. And here's the deal. Are you trying to watch the show and talk to me on Discord?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
Are you trying to watch my show and listen to me on Discord?
I'm looking at it in the background, yes.
Rock on. Where are you getting
That might be part of the issue.
Where are you getting your audio from? At the very least, you might mute it or.
I'm listening to Discord so that I can.
Gotcha.
Talk more functionally.
Well, are you able to see that I used a gradient map to change the tone of this?
Yep.
And how, again, with that setting or color palette or making it a choice, we can talk about art or music or even throwing a party for your friend. You know, the color and the production and the design is going to inform a lot of it. You know, this is a much hotter environment. This is a little swampier. This actually is starting to look more like a Japanese screen printing, so I might actually go with a more muted colors for this. Despite me wanting it to be colorful, full of color, I might go with a very low contrast kind of gamut. I feel like a pretentious ass every time I say that word, but I've looked it up twice on my streams and am emotionally validated that I'm using it correctly because I'm a chasen, and apparently we're, you know, I don't know if you know this, Majora, but did you know that technically correct is the best kind of correct?
It really is.
I can commiserate with him about something. All right, now I'm going to get really weird because I'm just fucking around. I shouldn't be awake. It is a gift that my body is animated at all. And, but if you see that these layers are here, did you know that you can, well, I've got them masked. That way let me turn off the mask. See, this is what it's like if it overflows. But one of the things I love to do about these gradient maps to really just sell the idea, and here's something else too. Catch that I'm not redrawing this tonight. I'm just farting around. This is me going, I don't have to redo the whole drawing, but I still want to play with the mood because it's not a 100% finished piece. I still am probably going to redraw it one more time, which is to say draw over the top of it to get the lines exactly the way I want. But this is an activity that's not so bad either. While it looks like I'm just farting around, taking the same environment and hitting it with these different choices really is part of doing a mood board. It's like, it's not enough to do show us outside of Luke Skywalker's house. Show me that at 5 different kinds of day. Why? Because I want to know what it looks like. How does the atmosphere change at night? You know, all of these things are mildly important. Excuse me. I remember going to GDC one year. I think it was the same year that my school sent me, and I shit the bed over the amazingness of seeing a real-time game engine where it wasn't like WoW. It wasn't like World of Warcraft where they half-assed the sun and the moon rising. It inside of an outside skybox. It was, no, we're going to do real-time sun and moon and atmospheric diffusion and the light changing and the fog. And I was just drooling. I'm like, am I still plugged into the machine that runs my brain? What's going on? And as a world builder, I was, wow. And so my mom has tapestries. She's an artist, but bless her heart, I would love for her to have the stones to do what I'm doing and step out into that weird arena of selling your own art. And I'm hoping that's one of the side effects of me doing this, is she sees a slight modicum of success and asks me. And then how I would do with any student, I would say, I've already waded through these waters of weirdness, friends. Let me teach you everything I know. Even so, like my sister's artistically inclined and she's good at it. So it's like, what if I help her sell some of her stuff too? That's why I decided to label our e-shop the Geeks Worldwide Artisanal Co-op. It's like, it's not just for me. If I can figure this out enough and it elevate my friends, let's do it. So look at that. I just changed that because that's easy. I want to give a shout out to a friend tonight who he doesn't know we're friends, but I love him. Sketch Craft. So turns out Sketchcraft and I live in the same city. What is this? Oh, I love winter reflections. We need upbeat stuff. This is the third time you have failed me, music. We're going to the future synth folder. Clean out all the old. Control A, grab this. This number's still 12 because Majora's here. Damn, here we go. Master Disorder. Alright. And this is the favorite thing about putting on my show, is that it's my show and I can run the music. You know, it's kind of like creation itself. Have you seen The Truman Show at least, Majora? Do you know what I speak of?
It's been a bit, but I have a couple of times.
Have you taken one of those personality quizzes, like with the INTJ and all that pizzazz?
Yes.
I bring it up because I will betray myself before you and say every time I take one of those, I end up being the architect. And for the idiot who went to school and got his damn degree in video game art and design, don't do it, kids. I'll say that it really, seeing even that concept being uplifted in the Hunger Games. Did you see the Hungry Hams movies?
I did not.
Oh, they're pretty decent, especially even just as movies if you don't want to ingest the books. But because there's an arena of doom involved at the pivot of the whole story, you get to see sometimes the camera jumps to the game master, the dude who had to invent tonight's programming and design what kind of technological hells to put the contestants through. Do you follow? The concept, at least? Yeah. Have you read The Most Dangerous Game?
I haven't, though I'm familiar.
Oh, rock on. With the trope, at least?
Yeah.
Tonight we shall hunt the most dangerous game. Man himself. I got 2 viewers. One's Linsku, I think, but we cannot be certain. Alright.
One of them's me because I insist on being in Discord and Twitch at the same time.
You know, and here's the real shit, dude. I turned that off not to save myself some bandwidth, but the fact that in my dashboard, if I watch my own stream on my third monitor, they count me as a viewer. And I'm like, no, well, that throws me off. And come on, we don't want to take the I am my own best friend stuff too seriously. My mom doesn't watch my show, but if you go through the archive, I had her on the show one time. I think that's one of the clips they allowed me to save, because she has played and beat Red Dead Redemption very many times. She loves the crap out of that game. Do you play the game? Are you familiar with it?
I've heard about it. I haven't played it myself.
So, what do you think of westerns as a thing?
The concept of like a westernized setting is interesting to me, and I'm hoping to maybe get into that a bit with my writing, though I probably won't stick too closely to western tropes because I'm not sure I'm a fan of like the most traditional elements of a western. It's just like the idea of like a romanticized frontier and all of the
I-
things that come with that.
I read a fantastic series of books, fantasy books, but they felt like almost reading Conan the Barbarian as in novel form. But it was The Blade Itself was the name of it, and was the name of the series by Joe Abercrombie. I don't have a memory for shit, but I think that's true. And the third, if I remember this correctly, oh no, it was so good. I think I ate the trilogy and then found out that he'd done another book. And I'm like, what is this? But he did it as a frontier book, kind of like, life on Tatooine. Kind of over here, people have decided, screw this system. We're going to get the basic, even though it was all semi-medieval, there was still a frontier. And he was, for the idea of just taking a bunch of people and herd migrating them into a new land, you can still borrow from the tropes because they're fairly timeless. When I do stories now, because of the game system that I love the most, Fate, in the way that it, if you're open to the idea of like random procedurally generated content, right? You know what that is?
Yeah.
You said Minecraft. Yeah. One of the things that I'm trying to do with some of the fictions that I work on is shove them through my role-playing factory that I know about. And Fate has this table that has 15 choices, just only 15 choices on it. So that's manageable to sit with your hand up your butt on an afternoon, or your nose up your finger up your nose and go, herp derp, what are 15 things I can say about the troubles of my world, this sandbox I just made? I've done this several times. To no good commercial effect, but as a thought exercise, it served me well, so I'm repeating it here. Why do I even bring this up? Because the frontier is all about, it's very heavy on the man versus nature stories. Well, that's great because this dichotomy, this trichotomy of 15 is divisible by 3 5s. And I like to say, I like to think of a world's troubles, a sandbox I'm going to view, as man versus man versus nature, and I like to go as a story crafter and a world building, because I want to stay in this headspace on the extreme man versus the weird. So what's the weird, WYRD, in your world? What's the fantastical? Yeah. And that's important if you follow the Dogma of Dan Harmon's story circle to talk about that as we get up. This song always sounds like Check the Time, folks. Where are we? Well, Dan Harmon's story circle has 2 halves, at the very least, if you're going to simplify it. And as I keep drawing down here and picking colors, but this spot on the story wheel is the crossing of the threshold. And every story should have this. And it's awesome, because it's like, knowing there's a division, I was talking to a friend the other day about this, because I run this even through the lens of my religion sometimes, but it's like, hey man, you crawled up out of the land, there's your division. Every story's a fish out of water story. So here we're going to go into the water. Well, what the hell's in the water? I've never been in the water. Do I even know how to swim? What's the strange, the unknown? And so that's really the bridge between, if I was going to tell a frontier story, I would lean on that sinew between nature and the unknown. And then man, even if you mentally have figured this out, I watched an excellent Western called, I think, Hell on Wheels. It was about how the train, it was a romanticized, fictionalized, but modernized Western about how the trains expanded west. And it had several seasons. But it was really good because technologically they'd figured out a lot of the nature problems and the strange problems. Like they'd quantified the strange with maps. That's the first area. They'd brought in scientists. You know, what are the new creatures? What's the stuff you're going to deal with? And it could have gone smoother, but man versus man is where a lot of the empathy drives, because man is always going to be an asshole to man most of the time. unless you're telling a really utopian story where you're leaning on like the weird, like, oh yeah, it's fairy town. We've learned to love each other, but oh god, the aliens. Like that's the well. All right, well there aren't any man versus man problems because you just took that off the table, numbnuts. Fine, that's okay. But now we got to lean real heavy on the rest of the shit. You just widen the spectrum, and then to go outside their pretty bubble means everything is weird. The weird increased. But yeah, this is how I look at a lot of things: is story math. It's like, all right, Billy, how do you want to plot ahead? And I got one 13-year-old local kid eating that up, the idea of going through the 8 gates of story. So he might come back and talk to me more about that. And I like it because it challenges me to know my own shit too. The song always sounds very anxious. My solution is cut all the wires at once. If we're going to be on a team together and we need to get some shit out, I'm just telling you that's the kind of guy I am. So that's the kind of problem solver I get to being.
Admittedly, I'm not. I've never been someone for like the whole, the whole environmental conflict that some stories do. I'm not. It's not the kind of thing I guess I'd say I find compelling to write.
You know, I think that it can come from some experience too.
Maybe.
I recently did an artistic residency this summer where I got to sit on a particular piece of land in a structure not unlike this. I was sitting outside in the shade that it made for almost a whole week, just sitting with my thoughts. That's a strange place to be. And so obviously the tactician in me and even the D&D nerd is like, how would I explain? And I'm constantly trying to talk to an alien or a foreigner in my head, and that helps me build empathy. How would I explain the concept of camp and its best practices? And so, have you done much role-playing at all?
I used to, because that was how my whole drive to write started, but there was a long period where I just didn't.
Preach, Majora.
And
Yes.
I had to relearn to do it, basically. I was really big into it when I was a lot younger, and then, not to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but I learned to be an introvert. And then for a very long time, I just wasn't able to get into it anymore. But then I've been getting back into it recently, but by this point, I'm more at a point where I can, but I prefer the more creative role behind, like when I do role-playing game stuff, I like to be the more administrative.
Well, tell me about your lineage. What's your favorite system if you had to pick one?
Oh, like,
Are we talking strictly D&D or Pathfinder, or are we talking about the craft of roleplay and broadly? Have you done any LARPing?
No, I have not done LARPing.
Okay.
When I first started, it was, this was back in 2005, 2006, where I basically lied about my age to be an accepted member on a game forum.
Preach. That's how I was allowed into LARPing. Yeah.
And
we had to kick the door in to be allowed into the local LARP club.
It's a story I love to tell people, because what basically ended up happening was these people running a role-playing thread on this forum basically let a 13-year-old metaphorically wearing a fake mustache saying they were 23 come in and basically steal control of the thread and boot out the guy who was original.
Please pause for channel identification. We are having technical difficulties, folks. You are pleasantly listening to Into the Wild with Incomitatum. Episode 35 is entitled Joyful Noise.
Oh, is there a problem here? Is my connection alright?
You sound like now that you are broadcasting over a headset from like a 737. It's not unacceptable. But
my connection dropped for a moment.
I was going to say, let's check the OBS. We still have a green light in the control board.
Okay. I'm hoping everything's fine. I just ran a check on everything. It should be...
Yeah, man. So what games do you allow yourself to play? Are you, what are you into? Do you do... I saw the art, and so do you get into the milsim stuff at all?
I've gotten into a lot of... I basically went for as wide a variety of playing games growing up as I basically could.
That's cool.
Though the big limit that I had growing up was I basically ended up almost exclusively playing like Nintendo stuff because it was the most affordable for a long time.
Preach. Yeah. I went from being a Nintendo kid to joining the PC Master Race.
Yeah, I can kind of feel that, but there's still things that I do enjoy getting up from console gaming.
Sure. Yeah, and in fact, you know, that is one of the ways that I started hurting is when Red Dead Redemption never came to the PC, and I saw all the fun my mom was having because I love those open world games, Grand Theft Auto, Breath of the Wild. Just, hey man, we invented the world. Go nuts.
I think the big thing keeping me from going full PC Master Race is once again money. I can't quite afford a computer so good that I can play any computer game I want.
You know, man, I have the video card I have by the grace of a friend, thankfully. This thing has fallen apart. The very fact that I can stream is a miracle, and I'm feeling you because we're on the verge of Cyberpunk 2077 becoming a thing, and I know my machine's not going to do it. I don't think I'll even get on the ground floor of the minimum requirements, and it hurts because I don't have to do it right. I would need about $900. And it's like, yeesh, I could blow that in a lot of more constructive other ways. So
yeah, but I guess what I can do is let me see if I can try something here. Can we just...
I'm Incomitatum on Steve too. Did I just call it Steve? That's great. Hey man, find me on Steve. That's awesome. I'm glad that happened.
Sometimes you just have to name your stream.
Did you say sometimes you have to man your shrimp?
I said you have to name your stream.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you do. Oh no, I was alluding to my Steve account. But you know, it's where we go to play all those games. What would his name be? Good old Gabe. I wanted to be him when I grew up. Then again, I wanted to work for the video game company Cyan as well. That didn't happen. But there is no harm in any of this. We're not bitching. We're saying, these are where I wanted to land, and here's where I didn't. Why are you being a butt? Oh well. So yeah, this is my idea board. I keep coming back here and filling this up with stuff. And there's another piece of my old works that got there. I did this thing for my Gramps around Christmas time. It too was a small thing that I meant to print, and I did. And all that is to say, I need to see what's true in its dimensions. You know, is it even near this format? Because I remember having made it small.
Hopefully that's sent properly.
Ah, we have a new signal from Majora. You're back?
Yes. I was taking a picture of
Okay.
so you can see my shelf.
Huge. Give me just a minute. I would love to see a shelf. Save
It's
this.
packed in pretty tight, but
I don't think we're going to use that tonight. Wind. Maybe. We can close this. Oh yeah, maps. I did want to find my map I made because it was cute. Did you get to see that map I made, Majora?
I didn't. I think the Twitch stream crashed at some point when I was having the internet problems. But the call sounds a lot better now.
No, I'm glad to hear it. That means that something in the weather of the internet has cleared up. What is this? Heart, and then I think Arlo Blevin stuff. And adventure map prototype. All right, take this in for a second. What do you think? How do you like it? What are we doing here? Are you
Let me see if
presently able to see on the stream? What if I were able to view
I need to find where my browser is in real
fit
Twitch.
on stream? And what if I put a black border around it? There we go. Oh, I believe that's quite nice. Let's look at that for a time. This song has a name and I really like it. I don't know what it is.
Okay, I am on my way back to the stream. I can see the map.
How does the map make you feel?
The first thing I feel is bad because I never committed to doing as much mapping as I probably should have.
Okay. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't. As your therapist for the night, I do not discourage you from making it about you. But I would say don't measure yourself against the map. It's a little map. Yeah.
No, I was just joking.
Right.
I've said that I should try doing more maps for like the worlds I've written about, but I just haven't.
Well, I tell you what, man. That might be a way that, and I'm not committing to it, but casually, I would say this with love. I would love to help you with that because I am a huge cartography nerd. I don't know if you've seen all the planets that I've made, but
I do not believe I have.
I put a lot of real science into how they're made and the volcanism of it, but that system can also be run backwards. You're like, well, some of this stuff's kind of made up and doesn't matter, but I really need this one mountain here because I wrote that into the story. It's like, cool, let's talk about how we can definitely make a mountain there, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of stuff too, literal world building. But yeah, here's a happy little map that I made.
I will say it does give a very certain kind of impression to feel so like dense in all of the waterways and rivers and all that stuff going.
Yeah, and here's something that I can tell you: this is with a particular scale in mind, and every grid is 1 square mile. It's a mile per side. So.
Let's see. It's one of those things that I'm just always conflicted between putting in the the time and energy into really sitting down and getting on this kind of stuff, and just kind of being fascinated by it from a distance. I'm on that line a lot.
What about even just behind the scenes so that your own stuff, kind of, for your own sanity. Old Man Robinson lives north of Perry Winkleton, and I mentioned that because I got to play this game that people said, and I'm really into story games that break you out of the role playing mindset, but stay in the vein of we are definitely still crafting a story. And so this person made this great game called The Quiet Year. Have you heard of the video game RimWorld, Majora?
I think I've heard of it.
I really respect it a whole lot. A whole lot. Maybe I should play it again soon. But I watched a GDC tech conference that goes on for like an hour and 30 minutes where they finally got, after he moved the game from alpha to a shipped thing. And in today's day and age, that can actually take years. Oh, I forgot that was on. But he said that it gave him levity to decide. The whole project started to clink together in his head when he finally realized, I am not making a game. When he would stop and pause the mantra and say, I am not making a game. Remember, I'm not making a game. He was creating a storytelling engine. This is not a game. And he got up on stage and he admitted this. He said, I purposely didn't make a game. And a lot of times, this is a heavy song. Let's turn it down just a little bit. He said to himself, a lot of times when he would see how people would react, he would even feel the impulse to gamify a subsystem of his world. And he had to pull back and say, if you want to add it, you have to add it into the deck of cards that is the world as it is generated. And then it was better. And even as a Minecraft player, there are definitely gamified components in there. And what if Minecraft was rebuilt from the ground up to only be an event, to be a world generator that also serves you dynamic events? And he said the person is going to see these things in montage. He didn't say that, but I'm paraphrasing. That by serving you up, barfing you up, slopping down, because we're not even saying they have to be high quality things. These are not nuggets of gold or wisdom from the mountain. If I give you a scenario and give you another scenario, your monkey brain is now comparing these two things. And they even say that comedy exists in the rule of three. If I give you a third scenario, now you have even more contrast, because whether students want to admit it or not, the monkey brain is building patterns out of always checking against compare and contrast. Always. So the storyteller magic is, let me tell you about Billy, and now you build an empathy with him. And let me tell you about his shittiest day. Oh, yeah. And if I show you on his best day and his shittiest day, there's some harsh contrast. But I bring all that up because The Quiet Year, and I really respect this chick because I'm poor. I'm like food stamp poor. Let's admit some shit on air. She even had some in her in the description for her game. She said, "Are you, impoverished or can't really afford my game? Use this promo code." Shit, right there in the damn description. Like, you don't have to do some skeezy shit to get it. 30% off. And in fact, a couple times, and I admit that I need to do this, but I've thought about buying another copy at the full price to give to a friend when my bounty has increased enough that I didn't feel like I needed to use the code. But why this is so amazing and why I bring it up, because this game taught me to see story in, it's almost a mind map. Have you done any mind mapping before?
I believe so, but not recently.
Mind mapping is, let's say I need to make a story about pizza, and so we put that in the middle and put a bubble around it, and now it's going to have sinew to other ideas. It's like, well, the editor told me make a story about pizza. Well, shit. What are some places, how do I deconstruct? I think of it like Street Fighter quite a bit. If I had to make a scene in 5 minutes, I need to know, where are they and who's there, at least. Is this going to be a man versus man story? Or a man versus self story? And he's by himself and we're going to hear his thoughts, Garfield style. But if there's someone else in the room, that's a scene, man. They're going to play off of each other and even improv together. But so all the relational what happens? What happens with the Quiet Year is you get a deck of 52 cards and they're broken up into suits. Sorry, the mic cut off. They're broken up into suits of seasons, and you play through them as such. And it's fun because you play through them in order. You start in a spring, and the game ends in winter, always. So that pattern is established. The fun thing about winter is it has a game-ending card, and so sometimes you have a long winter, and sometimes you have a short winter. But the game exists in... Let's look at some of these things. Springtime, if you drew this card, where does everyone sleep? This is what today's story is about. And you talk about it just briefly. Because the decision making, this feels a little more like being in a writer's room. Just saying the answer to this and talking it out with your friends builds more story there than there actually was.
Mm-hmm.
I had to run role-playing games for a convention. Have you heard of Gen Con before?
Yes.
I've gone there twice to run games, and I've been invited there to run games. They're like, hey man, come run these games that you wrote, scenarios, and we'll pay for not your hotel and your airfare, but we'll comp you a ticket to the whole shebang. It's like, cool, but it's a commitment, and you're gonna run these interactive stories on a crank of 4 hours at a time. And I was really like, give me some booze and I can be a DJ enough, an MC, but how do I do this? And what if, because there were strangers, the experiment runs every 4 hours, the train comes and goes, and whoever's on it could be different. So pre-canned characters is important, a little bio, things to help them get into character. But the one piece of sage advice that someone gave, he said, in the last 15 minutes, you can end it with grace by stopping the actual simulation and turning it into a conversation where you talk to them and ask, well, how do you think it ends? Because now the tone shifts and the camera shifts just enough. And he says the son of a bitch of the monkey psychology is they're not playing anymore. You just shifted the point of view a little bit. They're not playing. Game's actually over. But by keeping the conversation going, and we say in this new environment, and if you have something you want to add, just lift your hand. And in this space, I even give the permission to say, and if you have an idea for something that's not your character, go ahead and say it, but it's ultimately up to the owner of that character if they accept that. But you're still moving quickly, so you lay those rules down, and the son of a bitch it's beautiful. When you talk to them or you run into them again at the convention, they'll talk about the ending a lot. And they'll talk about it like it was in the game and part of the game, but it was actually just an epilogue that we were sitting at the same table, but you didn't catch the magic of how the rules shifted just a little bit. We're not rolling dice anymore. We're just conversating. But it's being recorded in their head as canon, I think, is the eloquent way I wanted to come back around and make that point. So... but all of that is to say that what I love about this game is these topics become relational, because in almost every move you make on the game, you get to draw a dumb icon on the map. And so one of the first things that gets drawn is like, where's your town? Cool. Well, then in episode 2, they find a witch's hut. All right, but where was that? Well, it was down by the water. What do you mean there's some water? Where the hell is that? Right? So it was a nice frame shift for me, because I'm normally a very top-down kind of guy as a world builder and a story-setting inventor. And then to say, no, you can do this on the fly where you're only ever where you are, so only lay as much track as you need, because I think, and not to debase your craft, but do you feel that you've got your formula down enough that you can crank these stories out pretty well?
I'm really not so sure.
Okay.
I don't have an answer to that.
Well, look, I don't know. Have you studied the pulp fiction style of writing at all?
I haven't. Honestly, most of my experience has been I would say, overly focused on one. I spend way too much time, I feel like, making my experience around basically branch stories on one tree and not actually shifting or doing anything
Okay.
too different.
Well, can you have a weird branch on your tree that it's like, okay, yeah, but you know, around the time this happened, here's some of this other stuff that isn't normal.
I've certainly tried to go for stuff like that.
Right, and the Council of Elders might even leave it out of the good book itself when they're throwing this all together. We all have those couple, you know, weird branches that we never pruned, but I'm trying to find the name of it as I stall for production value's sake. We'll go back to looking at my map because I like it. But a book was shared with me because I've read a lot about how to write, and you know, admittedly, I know a lot about story crafting, but I don't do the writing because I get caught up in the intellectual pursuits of building a world. And where the hell was I going to go? Stare at the train as it's leaving. Oh, it's the tone of the song that helped that leave. Oh, Pulp Fiction style of writing. So this dude, he wrote this book, and it's funny because the book moves at a similar clip. It's just one of those kind of self-help books, but it's about writing. And he puts out a really fascinating thesis or hypothesis, and when he tells you about how the books in the Pulp Fiction era, and let's look at them because some of them have some strange covers. Can you picture some of those covers? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
I have an idea.
I don't want to get a lot of actual Pulp Fiction, so Pulp Fiction covers. Yeah, we're gonna get some of these. Pulp Fiction, Black Mask, French Alley, The Edge of Panic, A Few Drinks with a Blonde, and the Smoking Violence and Blacked Out Memory. I mean, so what do we got here, kids? What are we looking at? It's a bit lewd, but it's, you know, we'll say this is a college level course, and your mom and dad said you could be here tonight. So, why is this important? Well, Pulp Fiction was really what we had when, right before TV started to really take off, but you know, TV wasn't in every building. And so he postulates that there's an odd demographic of those night people, or the blue collar kind of subway driver, or those people who are, in fact, using lots of public transportation and just needing a little story to get through their day. These things are about 6,000 words. How does that make you feel, Majora, to hear that these stories are 6,000 words?
That's pretty wild to think about something that dense compared to my own stuff, for sure.
Okay, tell me where you are when you do a sprint.
For me, my works tend to range from, even if we're not talking about novels and we're talking about something shorter, it would probably still be somewhere between 10 and 20,000 words.
Nice. Great. I love to hear that. And yeah, again, for those of you playing the home game, there's some contrast. We are comparing. So
something that's like 6,000 words in its entirety, that would have to be pretty solid, you know, dense in its content. That's you know,
no,
that's not the density I would work on.
You sweet summer child, I think you missed the mark. No, there is no density. These characters, by their brevity, are allowed to be a little two-dimensional. we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is entertainment itself. The pulp in Pulp Fiction comes from the fact that they figured it out. And the loser in this formula is the writer, by the way. I'll just spoil the ending. But they, with a capital T, figured out that you didn't even need to necessarily use newspaper paper. Just where can we get the paper from? And where can we pay these monkeys pennies to write these stories? Because look at this, 35 cents for The Case of the Lazy Lover. Black Amazon of Mars. Everything about her character is right in the damn title. That's our high concept right there. So here's the thing, though. Oh, Lord, let me back my shit up with some stuff, because I want the kids at home to learn. What's on my YouTube today, kids? Some shit about the government. I love the Green Brothers. But I want to go to my playlists, because I made something about Storycraft. Tink, 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 tink. And I'm looking for an old man in front of a billboard. I'm using this Creative Commons, by the way. But I want pictures of this dude in front of the billboard. Alright, so, let me tell you more about Pulp Fiction. I guess I need to ask Majora. Majora, intellectually, do you feel you are a pantser or a plotter? Have you heard of this dichotomy in your craft?
I've heard about it. I definitely need to have a structure to be able to work on what I'm doing without getting completely lost and devoid of direction.
You and I are similar people. Yes, because there will be a day that you are lost in the weeds. And when you're lost in the weeds, you want to know that that day was coming, not have it fucking blindside you. That day will always come. That day will always come. So you stand ready for it.
Like, I think I mentioned it briefly last week, even when planning the novel that I just finished today. There was a period where I just couldn't write it because I knew where I was starting the second half and I knew where I was ending the second half. But there was a whole 20 chapters in the middle where I had nothing.
If I am an alien and we're learning about some things, how do you measure a chapter? Is that your gut instinct? Are you saying a chapter for me is solidly like 3,000 words every time?
Usually when I write a chapter, I try to go for an average of 2,000 words about. That's like, I make that my goalpost. Sometimes I meet it, sometimes I don't, sometimes I shoot way past it, and whatever happens, happens. I try to work towards that.
Yeah, I have memes that I'm using to compartmentalize ideas that I stole from role-playing and being a GM that have worked phenomenally, and I'm trying to refilter them for Storycraft, and it's working well. Like, hey, write an actual scene card. Put a dude over here and over there. Why are they here? Now suddenly we're in a restaurant in India. I can work with that. I mean, yeah. But so here's the thing, and you were talking about halves of stories. I'm happy to hear you say that, because one of the first things that the baby shit, that the non-sophomoric version of me does, let's say, journeyman, sophomore, there's something else. Non-apprentice. I'm learned, but I'm not a master. Anyway, what I would say is, you probably heard of the 3-act structure, right?
I have, yeah.
Instantaneously, and if we lean more towards Dan Harmon's story circle, but not all the way, I'd say save yourself all the sanity and just make it 4 acts. And once you do that, your whole world will now start to align just a little bit for the better. Just a little bit. Fuck the 3-act structure. Some people, and I'm learning that there's a formula to that, like different cultures actually have more of a 5-act structure. So what I have up on the screen, I'm not going to show all 17 minutes of this, but it informs what I want to say about the Pulp Fiction thing, because I find it to be... Kurt Vonnegut here talks about the shape of stories, and he gets into that, and he doesn't talk about the story wheel much. But he mentions that there are slices, and that it depends on what kind of story you're telling. I want to give a shout out to this role-playing aid. Hamlet's hit points. Hamlet's hit points basically allowed my GM mind to start thinking of storycraft even more granularly. Do you do scene cards?
Do I do what? I'm sorry.
Scene cards. Like, do you think of
I
chapters or do you think of scenes? How granular do you get?
Usually I start by thinking of scenes, and then I start to think of how I want to cut things into chapters when I'm
That's not too bad.
working.
Do you got a calculator handy?
I could open one on my.
So Hamlet's hit points allowed me to start thinking about stories in chunks or even down to scenes as simply white or black Go pieces. Do you follow the idea?
One.
Are you familiar with the little stones from Go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Hamlet's hit points, so the whole thesis really, and you know, I might be doing it a disservice, but what I took away from it was you're allowed to think of individual scenes, and that dovetailed with some friends who introduced me to this excellent kind of non-role-playing game, Microscope. And I will always, because I am that weirdo. Some people say, man, you're so weird when you describe this that it kind of turns some people off. Too bad, because I love it. In my head, Microscope is you're kind of like the observers from Fringe, or let's just say that you're God's 6 favorite angels. I don't give a shit. You are helping to create history by standing just outside of it. And the damnedest thing, and why I love this game, is when you start thinking about it from the standpoint of a fifth dimensional being. The only scenes in your Microscope world that exist are the only scenes that need to exist. And why does it happen? Because the game really is you going to the Well of Time, or like a pensive in Harry Potter, and asking time a question. And then you go, basically time goes, I don't know. How about you and your friends sit around and talk about how did the king lose his head? Well, shit. Because you didn't ask where we are. You asked how did the king lose his head? Now we have a king, and we're still somewhere. Someone want to tell me where we are? Well, I think we're here. All right. Well, good. You know, it's nice to be able to think in those abstractions. And then what was fun and dovetailed with Hamlet's hit points, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter ultimately how the king lost his head. You'll find yourselves in a natural rhythm of empathy with some aspect of the world, and you record these simply with a white or a black dot on the bottom of the card. Like, was that a good thing that happened or a bad thing? I don't know, that's fucking subjective. Yes, it is. But we're still going to color history by, was it a good moment? Well, I don't know. I mean, was it the ninjas? Yeah, well, the dragon had a blast, so it was a good day for him. Do we like the dragon or the ninjas more? But, so the other thing that this dude in How to Write lays out, did you ever get the calculator open?
Yes.
What's 6,000 divided by 8?
750.
Could you write me a chapter in 750 words?
I mean, mechanically, I think I could, but
Right?
I'm not
Yeah.
sure I would. I'm not sure I could. I don't think that I could actually stop myself at only 750 and go, this is a chapter.
Right.
Technically.
Well, what's twice that? Marijuana girl. Yeah, a lot of these are really awful about women. It's like, oh, well, she dared to fucking want to go outside and have some fun, and I'll be stuck inside all day long.
That's like 50.
Now, what if you did 4 chapters of that instead of 8 chapters of half as much?
Mm,
The Wild Woman.
maybe I think maybe that would feel a bit shorter, but I think I would be able to more conceivably do that,
Yeah,
like realistically.
because
That's how I work.
a lot of the dogma that I'm trying to ingest these days is the smallest thing. And so that says you have a craft and you want to do it, but sometimes the thing that's holding you back is that you don't have the discipline to do it. But you haven't practiced enough to want to keep doing it. Like sometimes you're out. Sometimes you haven't practiced practicing. As dumb as that sounds. So we understand how a task itself is overwhelming simply by being. How can we make sure it's small and measurable and satisfying? Are you aware of the concept of Pomodoro?
I don't believe so.
It comes over from the Japanese, and I think it's their word for a little egg timer. But it says basically to sprint and allow yourself to take your craft, kind of like a sport or going to the gym, set a 30-minute timer. He said as he looked at the number underneath the stream and saw that we were going on 2 hours and 11 minutes. Pomodoro is great and healthy for all parts of your life, friend, because it allows you to wrestle back the authority you have over your own mind and say, I can think in manageable episodes of the Ninja Turtles. It's just 30 minutes. Get up and pee and drink some water. Take care of yourself. Lift your head up from whatever your task is and just to even take a deep breath every 30 minutes. But that's to say that in Pomodoro, it's again that kind of what's the smallest thing. So, these pulp novels, 6,000 words. I haven't done a chapter breakdown, but I would imagine it's not a lot. Did you ever read the Goosebump books or?
I did.
Yeah. So that or did you do the more adult Fear Street books?
No, I read into Goosebumps when I was a lot younger, but it's definitely been a while since I've seen it.
I bought some at the Powell's bookstore in Portland, and I got through 2/3 of one. But the Fear Street books are good because they're not sophomoric. I mean, yeah, they are, but they're a little bit. The bars is raised a little bit, and you realize that they are pulp fiction. They're not a lot. They're big print. It's not a lot of pages, and the overarching mandate is great. Let's get a formula for these and churn them out. That's all the industry of pulp fiction cared about. There's one dude credited to writing damn near 700 of these books in his lifetime because he figured out there was a formula. Oh, and the basic formula is for this, because I've been talking about that. Kurt Vonnegut would say, it's a black flag, a black flag, a black flag, and a white flag. Pulp Fiction main characters tend to be rowdy boys who, they're not so good at talking, but damn that, I'm just going to solve my problems with my fist. They're punchy men of action. I'm just going to do something, damn it. And what you find, and you can match this up to something like Sin City. Pair it up with Sim City. I don't care. You're allowed to have an OC however you like. But the white flag normally is an external Deus Ex Machina every time. It's Jimmy got himself into some trouble, some worse trouble, and then some big trouble, and it made enough noise that his friend, the captain of the wharf, bailed his ass out. Wow. And so a lot of those, the hero scrapes by at the last second, but it's normally an external factor. Well, yeah, the high tide came in, just like I planned all along. Wink. Like, what? What? Zaff Brannigan's. But, so of course I had to go cross-eyed and measure the two. But it's like, all right, I learned this Pulp Fiction stuff, and I'm like, well, what So you said like 700 some odd. That's just like 5 or 6 high quality tweets, right? In a chapter?
I'm sorry?
That 700 number, if we take 6,000 and divide it by 8, it's like 750 some odd.
750.
Yeah. And I said, well, you could divide that even smaller by saying that that's just like several high quality tweets.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Did you watch the movie The Martian or read the book?
I did not.
Apparently he wrote that all online while pandering to fans. That is to say, he even just threw it up on his own website, but he knew his niche. He knew that he was going after like the really smart nerds, rocketry nerds. And so they kept coming by, and so he kept writing it. And he kind of had a plan, but he was able to monetize it. So, how's that going? Is that getting you chicken sandwiches once a week at least?
I mean, I wouldn't say I've really found an audience for my work, because I'm very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm very self-indulgent in how I handle what I write about. And that's not the easiest.
So you're saying you like what you like, and you're writing about whatever you are, and that's great,
yeah.
But you don't give a shit if anybody else really is reading it, and that's okay too.
I mean, I would love it if me just doing what comes naturally to me could be picked up by someone and enjoyed, and makes them go, I could also just do this and maybe write what I like and put something out there, and like that would be the goal, I guess.
Could you be at peace with them enjoying it and it not infecting them to want to write?
I mean,
because they might not take that away from it. I mean,
yeah,
not all people are so enlightened to want to go craft.
I could like accept that.
Yeah.
Just as long as like if I inspired like anyone to feel like maybe they could put something out there, then I'd feel pretty good about that by itself, regardless of how many people enjoyed it. Which technically I've already done that. But
do you have neighbors? This is to say, I've been trying to even stop using the word competitors, but have you gone on to Amazon and seen if there are people selling stuff under the vein of the same stuff you're writing, but you just haven't started selling?
Or
similar.
It's
not the same. That dishonors you to even say, but
similar. It's I mean, there's just a lot of stuff, and I'm never sure where to look with that kind of thing. There's just so much ground you can cover with it.
I mean, we were talking about Westerns earlier. If you had to pigeonhole yourself, what would you choose as your most dominant genre? Is it military simulation? And I keep coming back to that just because I kept seeing the beautiful battleships. So,
I mean, as much as the couple of people who've read my books like to poke fun at how much I go back to that same setting, I will not say that military really applies to my
genre. Do you have a coffee maker? Are you a connoisseur of coffee?
I'm not, no.
We have a Keurig coffee maker. And I was thinking, because I do the science of making my coffee, and sometimes it's like, all right, well, I'll run the water a little hotter or longer or all that. There are variables. You might be able to appreciate that. But the other thing about the Keurig, and if anyone listening has ever used one of these damn things, it's fun because we like to be economical. We don't use the K-cups. We use the self-filling pods. It's basically a fun little basket. You open it up, you fill it with your grounds, because then you're not generating a lot of trash. Well, we do it that way. But when you load the thing in, it's like loading artillery. You throw the pod in, you slam the thing down, and then you have to push the button. And it's like, even tonight, All right, well, we're going to load pod 1 and fire it. And then we're going to fire it twice. And it's like, well, this week we haven't been doing that. It's like, are you sure? Well, the field manual says to do it this way. Well, I'm unconventional Jim, and, I like to... We're going to fire pod 1 twice, and then we're going to fire pod 2 twice also. It's like, what? Well, the manual... I'm going to have to see someone. And it's like, suddenly now, just because someone is going off of spec, we have a man versus man story. Well, I'm your commanding officer, and I've told you to do that. It's like, sir, that is not how we do it around here. We fire one pod and then the other pod, and we never refire any pods. My grandpa, he used to fire some pods 3 times. Crazy motherfucker. What's he trying to do? Blow up the whole company? Like, what does any of this mean? But it's like, sometimes that's the fun. Like, anytime that I've been with my friends and we've done like military simulation, just getting to sit in the big boy chair and say the words like, yes, that's right, Strikecraft B, I authorize you to fly a kill mission in Sector 11J going north by northwest at 50 knots. What? I don't know what he said. I don't know what he said, but that sounded hella cool.
When I write, I guess what I like to go for is what I'd call like the spectacle of the inherent spectacle of an adventure story. Where you just kind of have different kinds of people, different kinds of places, and yeah, there are obviously going to be conflicts carrying the story, but a lot of the substance to it is just there's so much out there. And I mean, yeah, when I wrote my first book, you could look at it and you could make a takeaway where the protagonist is from a military background, but the actual story is about him being forced literally in and out of a military position in the same day and forced to basically travel to all these different places with these people he's never met before to try to, untie all these knots that have been put all over the place.
Okay. Are you talking about knots of bureaucracy, and is his story mostly social, of running around and getting the king's writ stamped properly, and the authorization to unfuck the supply line going out to the frontier? I mean, sometimes man gets in his own way, so.
I don't know how much of that you heard because apparently Discord decided it was done.
I feel like I heard most of it. You ended in a coherent way. And so I was saying, do you find that most of your stories tend to be like social stories of man? You were saying untie knots. Are these knots of bureaucracy?
Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's just people dealing with their personal problems on the way to whatever they're doing, and it's just that's kind of how it is. One of the stories I know my friends really enjoyed, a story that I called I Don't Hate You. That story was literally an incredibly personal story, just about a person. It wasn't, while it was starring people going to a military academy in the same setting, coincidentally enough, the story had almost nothing to do with the military setting. It was about basically the protagonist's relationship with their estranged sibling.
Do you say that you are influenced by anime in some regard? Or manga?
I mean, I've consumed the medium. I can't sit here and even try to say with a straight face that like video games and anime and manga haven't influenced my thinking. Like, of course, anime.
Yeah. But one of the things that I find even in some of the stuff that I'm watching, and I don't ever normally set out to watch anime on purpose, but I'm open to whatever people are saying. This is really good, and for these reasons. But I think I could use the word, and maybe you could go there with me. Would you say that, yeah, you've made this sandbox, and there might be this big wheel turning around them, but you tend to tell slice of life stories?
There we go, Discord. Okay. You cut out a little bit there at the end.
We'll go through it one more time. But the notion would be that you tend to tell slice of life stories.
I guess you could frame it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying that even though the bigger conflict might be mentioned, you keep the camera intimately on, just a couple characters. And one dude recently said, because I find that even though I want to gobble up a lot of stuff about writing, when it comes to storycraft, there's far more out there about screenwriting and storycraft combined. But he did a good job, because I think that it dovetails well, in as much as the guy mentioned, you're not telling a story of saving the princess. And it's like, and I don't even care if you lay out the 8 gates that you want to hit while you go through this story of saving the princess. You can say you do this, and then you do this because of that. Doesn't matter. You have to realize that every scene, and it comes down to a scene by scene basis. Every scene is a pivot, is an emotional pivot. And he said, whereupon, if a character comes into a scene in one direction, they're going to leave in the next. That's why in this image here I have these little designs. And this is kind of like a log line of, let's go up a mountain and down a mountain. Are you able to see this, Majora?
One moment.
But yeah, Hamlet's hit points is like, oh, look, if he didn't come into the scene with a problem, he needs to have a problem to solve as he leaves the scene and goes to solve the problem, and then he needs to get the problem a little more solved, and then probably get some more problems to solve along the way, right? Like, woo, that was a mouthful, but essentially, it all comes down to, and I might have even said this, but I've been practicing the dogma of every man, is the hero of his own story. Well, every author is the devil of their own story. If I'm the devil, I'm here to put Job through some shit today. Did you get to see that movie with Will Ferrell where the whole thing was narrated? God, it was beautiful, but I'm trying to remember what it was called. Essentially, this writer is writing, and for cosmic lulls, she didn't realize that she was directing this poor schmuck. Well, shortly after the audience is in on how the universe works, he starts hearing her writing in his head with a good lag time of like maybe a solid 4 to 8 seconds before the shit actually unfolds in real time. And so he gets wise to it, and he starts using some clues in her writing style to, oh, holy shit, she's a famous author, and I need to get on a bus and go see her, and that's kind of contrary to what she's saying, and so it... it's like, stop writing about me, you're ruining my life. But I found it fascinating because, it's... again, in the push-ups of it, it's like going smaller and smaller and smaller into the fractal. It's like, okay, well, can you tell a story in 2 vignettes? Like a vignette is just like write one scene, and it doesn't have to be connected to nothing. They can't leave the room because we're not even implying there's a bigger universe. Like, heaven forbid. But it's like, well, what if they were 2 rooms or 2 scenes? And my magician, my weird, like, wizard friend talks about that, but he's like, if you want the universe or the Matrix to serve you some new content, or you're having a shitty day, don't be afraid to change scenes, because that's just now amplify the potential. Like, get up off your butt and go for a walk, anything. But which I then, in a conspiracy fun way, have tied to the fact that they've said that human beings kind of have a RAM dump every time they walk through a doorway. It's like, hey, if you want to destroy your short-term memory, get up and leave where you were. It's like, why did I walk in this room? Well, I can tell you why you don't remember, because you walked through a doorway, at least one, to get here. Wow. What? Apparently this is true. Apparently this verifiable. So Linsku came and said, really cute purple-haired girl emojis, which I love. Thank you, Linsku. That's awesome. And then it said, oh, how was your day? Well, my day was amazing. My day was a Thor's day with lots of potential. I amplified that potential by playing my flute down at the park, and I prayed for rain, and it happened. I didn't know rain was possible. I'm not saying I made it happen. I'm just saying, hey, if they were taking a consensus about my opinion, it was heard a little bit. Hey, man, I'd like some rain. It happened. We had a beautiful storm. And then simply by being one of the few weirdos in the neighborhood who would stand out in the hot rain, I got to converse with 2 other people, because it was really only a sprinkle. But other people I'd never met before, and they were cool, and now we know each other, and they actually, 2 of them added me to their Instagrams, or however the hell that works, and they are my followers, however shitty that word means. I hate saying that. My follower. Yeah. Like I have sheeple at my command. In a weird way, I've got my beautiful super friends and my champions, which, I'm going to need to lean on them soon to help me get these designs to print. But one kid today asked me this very thing. He's like, what is all this? I'm like, well, my friend, this is a design I'm thinking about selling separately. And it's a conversation. It's like, we can sit for 4 hours and talk about all that. Which I'm perfectly willing to do. But yeah. Thank goodness Majora leads on that he too is a plotter, because I'm all about having some schemes. I like to plot myself, so.
Plotting just makes it so much fun also. I know my favorite, I don't think that I could ever really use my favorite kind of trope as much as I do if I didn't plot things in advance.
I sent my wife over instant messaging in the middle of work 8 different pages to TV Tropes, saying you got to read this because of some character that she was dreaming up for City of Heroes. I'm like, this, if you follow this log line through, this is amazing and you're gonna love it. And she did. So yeah, I need to take a hydration break, but think about it. I want you to put some thought into it. When I come back, I want you to, if it's not so awful, bare your soul to the audience here, betray yourself, and admit to us what are some of your more favorite tropes, because that sounds juicy. When we get back from Into the Wild with Incomitatum, it's all joyful noises.
Just what is the delay right That is a 27-second delay. That's fun. That is a cute dog. I appreciate getting to sit here and look at a good dog.
All right, friends, here we are.
Hello.
We're sitting down, we're listening to the tone of the music. Where do we find ourselves? What waters do we sail on? Let's turn this music up.
We're sailing on the waters of my stream is 27 seconds behind me.
Yeah. And sometimes if you want to be a guest, it does help to just... Unfortunately, sometimes you need the visual cues, but to just kill it. So you got to decide. We are also joined by Linsku, who is commenting that Hydration Puppo, or Kratos, is a cute doggo. And he certainly is. He is not a licensed therapy dog, but I tell you what. Well, let's zoom in on this, folks, because it's totally relevant. Be softer with you. You... I don't remember what that says. Anyway, you are soft. You're a lot softer than you give yourself credit for. So, everyone needs to have a self-care checklist, and just remember, if you can hug on a cute doggo, get it done. Or cat. Cats are fine. Fine, that's fine.
I may not have a dog anymore, but I have a stuffed dog.
You know what? I tell you what.
Well,
Set and setting are a thing, and I have kind of Vader's meditation chamber going on, but it is colorful and full of tapestries and worthy of this music, to be quite lovingly honest. But, and so, in effect, I've had to take these to hippie festivals with me because my life is what it is because I got in a car wreck and farged up my back real bad. And that's okay, but now I accept that I'm the kind of guy who, you know, I'm going to need to carry pillows around if we're going to sit all day out on the grass. It's like, yeah, let's picnic like when the concept was invented. Picnicking used to really just be day camping. Let's go for let's go sit at our favorite spot for 8 hours. You got a spot that you bug out to, like your spot, like it would bug you if other people were there, but you know, not to violence, but you know, But like, hey man, that's my place. I formed those memories with my buddy Jeff. Like, whatever.
I mean, I've moved around enough where it just kind of ends up being my own, it's my space that I reliably be in.
My buddy Hensel and I, shortly after meeting, everything's shortly in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, anyway, it was nice to be able to meet a guy where I could be like, hey man, let me take you to the place. Let's just go drive and to a place I like to go and talk. To some people that's weird, and to me, if I call him up, I say, hey man, I'm having a bummer, like everything just went sideways, my house is burning, meet me at the crossroads, he would know where to go. And it's just where we like to sit, like God made an excellent vista point right there, let's stare at the sun, and you're overlooking the town, and it's like, cool. Camp Tranquil is a couple of places. I like to joke that it's wherever I actually get my tapestry set up, but even on stream we looked at Eagle Island one time, and that's a place that I like to set up my tapestries. But yeah, there's just a couple places where I like to try and bug out and find my peace, and even Linsku was saying there's a particular bridge he likes to go under. Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping in and out through the day. Linsku, you don't gotta be sorry for nothing, man. The fact that you give me any sand out of your hourglass is a blessing to me. We're gonna keep looking at this map. Because apparently we are. Have you taken in any of the movies by Wes Anderson?
I'm not sure. I'm not
home game, let me read his filmography as I turn down the mix just a little bit. Did you do your homework? The thing that you needed to think about that we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Oh, tropes?
yeah. I just wanted to ask. All right. Yeah. What do we got? I thought he did this other one. Oh, yeah. Not that yet, but soon. I'm trying to look at his discography. What do we got? I thought he did... what is this called? Well, where Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson? Lost in translation. Who did this? Oh, Sofia Coppola. I should have known that. Now I feel like a rube. Anyway, Wes Anderson. Recently, people might have seen Isle of Dogs. Fantastic Mr. Fox was pretty good. My friend just showed me this a few months ago, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Where's the one with the island? Is it Rushmore? No. Moonrise Kingdom. This is about a Boy Scout that convinces a girl to go on a hike with him, and they have to find a rescue team to bring him back because shenanigans. One of the things I like about this dude, though, is that he always has at least one shot in his movies of the map. And a lot of times it is in montage, because that's a fine time to do it when they're going to travel. What if some story crafter said, let me pull up the darn thing. Here we go. This arc, this is, if you can see, going into the underworld. And as I have heard it many a times, you can gloss over this slice of pie here. Normally with a travel montage. Now, the other thing that a travel montage does, though, is it still informs some of the color of your world. We get to see a couple settings back to back, but it also says what is the normal for this setting and their modes of transportation and moving about from one idea to the next. How do the people in your story tend to travel? They got cars? Are your characters mostly droogs on foot?
It's pretty context sensitive. In my first stories, a lot of travel between really significantly different locations would happen through like gateway travel.
Okay.
So it was a lot of like very long distance, like magically constructed means of travel a lot of the time.
Gotcha.
And then it would be on foot through more dense and specific locations.
Okay, so a lot of rubes who are used to going out on away missions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to the place. But now that we're at the place, we still have to travel to the deeper place.
Mhm.
And this allows you to kind of lean on some of those little fish bowls or Planet of the Week kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that dovetail with any of the tropes you want to talk about?
Um, I know what the big stuff. It's not really tied to setting. I like a lot of like character development tropes, especially things tied to character identity and how it's presented.
Tell me everything about that while I shut up and draw for a while.
Yeah. So, I like to be I like to be a little bit dishonest, or at least not completely truthful and upfront about character identity and the way that I present it.
Are you straight up? Are you straight up a unreliable narrator often?
I like to lie through omission.
Okay, no, that's totally
I
fair.
don't. I don't specifically and deliberately lie about who characters are. Typically, like
look,
the main protagonist and the person you're following. But I like to give the most technically correct misinformation that I can sometimes.
the other way that I like when this plays out is that people jumped to a conclusion and or the zeitgeist said, of course you'd think that, but you never said it. Like apparently, and I haven't studied this, but the wife is sleeping and she would definitely could tell me all about it, but Hermione is never implied to be one race or the other. She just has curly hair. Yeah, you probably saw the movies, so that informed your brain. But if you read the canon of the books as though they are sacred texts, she's never given a ethnicity. So Black Hermione is technically correct, because it never mattered. That is to say, she just needed to be a street kid. She's a dirty muggle, is at the core concept when we first really get to know her. You grok any of this with analogies at least?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great because it's like, well, when I lead people through thinking about story, I say, I'm only every time I give you a detail, it should be loaded into the chamber. Specifically. Yeah. Now, this is a lot of the reasons why I don't write, because I know this stuff. I feel it's true. I just read an excellent book that infected me and upset the way I even think about prose. Did I show you on the last stream the book Sharp Teeth? I'm not going to stop talking about it.
Yes, you did.
I would like, yeah. Eat a chapter or two of that, if not the whole book. Another lady, much smarter than me, she said recently that she believes that there are so many books out there that you should take a book and read it for at least 100 minus your age pages. And it's like, if a book doesn't wow you in X amount of pages, you're allowed to get the fuck out of there and read something else. And really, if no one ever says that to you, then you might be like, well, I don't like reading, because you're seeing it as you're shackled to a commitment. Like, a lot of people get that from book clubs too, so. So it's like, okay, what's the economy of prose? And if I know that if I feel that way, then how can I be even tighter with my words? Golly. 750 words for a chapter. Yeah, well, all he writes is dialogue now. It's really beefy stuff. Are there so I'm an armchair psychologist, at least. Are there particular issues that you like to fucking front load your characters with? It's like, well, in the third act, Billy's always gonna spill his guts about his shitty dad. Like,
I've tried to cover a lot of different kinds of character conflicts that they could have. I wouldn't say I usually try to give them. I don't try to cover a very specific ground necessarily with that kind of thing. Just and some stuff is heavier than other stuff. Like a lot of the character arcs in my current story have been a bit on the heavy side on average, if anything, from what I usually work on. So,
We don't wear kid gloves here. What's heavy? What's your opinion of that?
One of the things with a major character in the novel that I've currently been working on was it's talked about where there is essentially a corrupt politician who decides, for reasons that are gone into on a whole other different wavelength, that it would be appropriate to destroy the section of the city that he runs. That is basically where all of the homeless and less wealthy people in the city live.
Yeah, that's
Not,
some normal everyday Monopoly Man story. I don't mind that. Yeah.
we aren't talking about he decided to evict everyone there and like bulldoze it. He didn't want it there, so he paid other people to burn it to the ground with the people still there.
Yeah. So
And if they died, they died, and that wasn't his business, and everyone died.
that sounds
except
like some Wilson Fisk level stuff. Yeah.
Except for one person who was rescued by a sort of counteraction by the government, and they rescued what people they could. There's a whole layer to this that I just don't need to go into because that's getting into deeper plot stuff. But
Sure. No, I don't think that's too heavy. Look, I mean,
like there's a whole thing going on with this character where he had basically been rescued from this, and in exchange has given his life to the ruler of this nation's government. But on his own terms, he's still just kind of followed by the fact that this one specific person decided one night to kill 400 people in a fire because he didn't want poor people in the city. And he's just kind of sitting on this.
well, how publicly known is this shit? Does he exist in a world where that's normal in so much as he's looking around and having cognitive dissonance going, I can't believe nobody else gives a shit that he did that? Like, we all know he did it.
No, it is not a known, it's not a publicly known thing that this guy did this.
So
it's
like not a secret.
A whole ton of it is just kind of a beneath the surface government knowledge kind of thing. People know that 400 people died in a fire.
So then you bring up an excellent point. Where does he serve his perspective in so much as I say that a lot of characters can be distilled down into their demeanor and their profession. His lens is what? Is he a soldier now too?
Yes. I went for the angle of portraying him as if he's as a very easygoing and just kind of like, I guess, for lack of a better word, he's a very kind of whimsical, flirty kind of person, and he doesn't seem like the kind of person who would be harboring incredible ill intent to another person. He's the kind of person you'd sit down with and you'd assume this guy seems like the kind of person who, like, maybe he just never even thought about hurting another person. This seems like the kind of guy who just wants to sit down and have a drink with everyone.
Okay, well then to walk that backwards, and how does he find out? I guess that's the Socratic question, and what's in the how of how he finds out this secret, and if it doesn't set him back on his ass, then it doesn't.
He never didn't know the secret, but as things get it's kind of layers get very slowly peeled back around his situation, where he's allowed to get closer to the physical circumstance of what led him to where he is now, which would be the city where he grew up.
Well, did it happen happened. When he was so young that he has no emotional
no
gravitas in it?
No, I believe the time frame I gave for it, he would have been about 15 at the time. And he's like in his late 20s.
Well, look, even when you consider polarizing events in someone's life or even on the world stage, you could see how normally, classically, this kind of character would become a rebel of some kind.
Mhm.
So instead, he ends up joining the machine.
It's not so much as voluntarily joining the machine as much as they saved his life and he's repaying debt. And he makes it clear that that's the relationship that he has.
Okay, so then what was the motive for them to save his life when he should have died that day too?
Their motivation was essentially that there was a layer of interaction as to what was happening, where the government tried to communicate with this governor in question about what he was doing. And there was a very significant miscommunication with regards to what he said he was doing and what he ended up doing.
Oh, good.
Where
Yeah.
they assumed, okay, so he's going to pretend to burn this part of the city, and we're going to send people over to like quickly and sneak people out of the city. And he actually took it very seriously and actually burned that whole section of the city to the ground.
Like too literally.
Yes, and when like the people from the government show up to evacuate people, this place is an inferno. They're just like, wow, this is not what we were told was going to happen.
I didn't sign up for this shit. Right.
So they just weren't able to save a lot of people, and then they have to cart all these people back with like horrible, life-threatening burn injuries, and they're not even able to save all of those people that they pull out of the fire.
Yeah, no, so that's good. Then for a lot, you're saying that this is a polarizing or demoralizing thing, just not your main character. For some reason, he's been given the attitude or the demeanor that he will just be a kind of chill dude and is unfazed.
Yes. And as situations kind of allow him...
Sarah share. Yeah, like, well, such is life. Like...
And like as circumstances allow him to get closer to the person responsible, because he knows full well who's responsible for choices, he just kind of stops pretending that he's such a happy and positive person, until eventually he actually gets sent back to the city, because after this whole incident, the government basically looked at this governor and was like, if you ever do anything bad like this again, you understand, we can't guarantee that we like kill you, like formally have you executed, because what you did is actually horrible.
Okay, so not to demean you, but then what's your actual story about? Because again, this sounds very situational, but where's the conflict?
The sort of background conflict is... I'm sorry, I'm just not sure where exactly to start. I guess if I wanted to take a step all the way back to the start, the story on a fundamental level is about a person who is forced from his home by a sort of... So the protagonists live on a planet that is kind of bifurcated by an enormous wall.
Okay.
So these societies kind of grow having very weird ideas about what's on the other side of the wall.
Okay.
And the society the protagonist lives in, they just kind of grow up with, the wall is it's a dangerous thing in multiple senses of the word, and you just shouldn't go near it. You shouldn't mess with what's written on it.
It's so fucking bad. Don't look about it. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Stay the fuck away from it.
And then one day, there's like a full-on military invasion from the other side of the wall, and just...
I like that.
Just what is happening? There's like this attack from a place that most people just don't even think really exists. And the story basically, the first half of the story is dedicated to this two people who end up fleeing this together, and they end up finding refuge on that side of the wall that the invasion came from. And they're just kind of trying to get by in the place that has like completely dominated their home.
Great. Yeah, I like that. So the other side of the wall is your underworld in this.
Mhm.
Nice. And then are their cultures significantly alien? Like how much of a readjustment? Or is it really just...
I would say they are pretty different. Physically, even the people who live on one side of the wall are pretty noticeably different than the other side.
I was going to say even just culturally different, though. I mean,
both culturally and physically, they're pretty different.
Good.
You
Rock
know,
on. And I think that
if
the two
you're
should
on one
inform
side
each
of
other.
the wall, people are like you would. If you look at people from the perspective of like the protagonists, they go south of the wall and they see all these people who are like weirdly tall. They have all these weirdly spread out towns and cities. They have this they have a noticeably different standard of technology.
Oh, that's delicious. Yeah, that's something as a game master, if you and I are sitting down to invent a new sandbox, I would be like, all right, let's talk about
and this is from places where on their side of the wall, people lived in big communal complexes. They never went outside for anything. They lived entirely in complexes.
So we got kind of an ant-like mentality versus how would you sum up this other culture?
It's a lot more of a traditional, more kind of digestible, feudal culture.
So when the audience is in the underworld, they're more like, all right, I kind of get this place.
Yeah. The place the protagonist comes from is like inherently weirder and more worrying at first glance.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because they just kind of talk about this place where it's like, yeah, no, we stay inside. There's no sunlight. There's no moonlight. We stay inside. We leave our rooms. We live on a schedule. We do our assigned tasks. We go back to our rooms.
Yeah, this is like Elfland. This is like similar to the movie The Island. It's like, let's go from this place that even might seem like a paradise to...
And I made no effort to make it seem like this was a positive way that they lived.
Right.
Because it just wasn't. It was just like, this is how they live because they feel like they have to live this way.
Yeah, now at some point you do get lost in and it's up to you to serve the reader or not. And I'm saying you get to be selfish, but you get to, through documents or point of view, show how did it become this fucked or weird or strange, or how did the wall... And the nice thing is about it as an author is you don't have to answer any of those questions. J.J. Abrams talks extensively about the mystery box, and he's like, you're building a mystery box. He says, but it's up to you to decide if you want to pull anything out of it. And very few writers answer all the questions at the end of whatever they're setting out to do, so don't feel bad about that.
And the whole first half of the story, they end up in this weird foreign society, and they almost immediately run into problems with the culture difference.
I was gonna say, and I don't know if I said it before we jumped out of here to something else for the break, but the Screen Cinema dudes, he said that these are not... Again, I think I did say this, the story of saving the princess. It's the emotional journey of saving the princess.
Yeah.
So when they're in this when they're fish out of water, how do they react? As in, some characters will think this is sexy. It's like, wow, let's go get lost in the weird new arcade. Let's learn everything.
The very first thing that happens is the two protagonists, they split up because after traveling with each other as almost strangers, they just kind of hate each other and they don't want to be around each other.
I like that. Situational comedy says, man, I need some time away from you, even if we are friends.
So the main protagonist, he wanders around and he's just kind of in awe of the difference in technology. He's never seen a television before. He's never seen a car before. And he's just kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, within, a couple of hours of being in a completely new culture, the other person has already gotten into trouble with police because they did something they weren't supposed to do.
Lulu Dallas
And
multipass.
and the police told them why they're not supposed to do it, and their response was, "No, shut up. That's stupid and wrong." Even though this just is not your culture to say that. And this leads into them basically being rescued by what amounts to a revolutionary group that rescuing them from their own self-destructive.
The people for other people across the wall.
It's not even that. Like the people are insanely weirded out by the fact that there are these people from the other side of the wall. Nobody is not weirded out by that.
Rock on.
But and like the guy they meet, a guy who I call Weatherman, which is an alias he goes by. He literally just looks at these two guys and he's like, "You two literally look like children. Why are your voices so deep? That's weird."
Yeah, no, I like it. It's like, look, at some point you need the. If we're saying it is weird with a YRWYRD, yeah, just strange, counter to, that's great. And sometimes you need to. It's not even quite having that point of view character, but it's like, let's just say some real shit here. Like, look, okay, here's some shit. And my wife didn't like me saying this the other day, but I realized why people are disrespectful. Imagine a dude with burns all over his face. Or imagine if I were to be horribly burned all over my face. In building empathy with humans, I believe the better thing to do, even though why this is counterculture, would be go ahead and stare at me for a long time. Get it in your head what I look like. Because the number one reason why people stare, we're told it's disrespectful, they're just trying to figure out a little bit of the story of what the fuck happened. But, I remember distinctly I made friends with a dude, and I saw him a few times in the hall at school, and I thought he looked a certain way. And it wasn't until we were hanging out for months later that I'm like, he doesn't look quite like I thought he did when we met. It's like, wait a minute, we solidify a pattern in our head. So sometimes we're just staring at the weird going, you're fucking weird, dude. What? I don't mean to be. I know you don't mean to be, but dude, nobody says that shit from here. Like if you're not from here, you don't say that. That's our word. What? Zamboni? That was my grandpa's name. Dude, don't say it. We just said you don't say it. That's right? Like, but see, that's a thing. How weird is that? Yeah. I'm always thinking about tribalism in the form of storytelling because as a concept, I don't know that we're ever going to get that solved. So it's like, all right, you got your people and my people. Well, what's different? Why are we Hatfields and McCoys? How did that come to be? Not even so much the how, but what are the inherent differences? Well, you see, they live on the east side of the mountain, so their plants get like a little more morning sunlight. That's it? Well, basically, like, we've gone back and looked at it extensively, and it's like, it's all we can figure. I have a running headcanon of constantly wanting to just be the disembodied eyeball in my headcanons. It's like, let's listen to Greg and Steve from the Death Star's accounting operations talk about their avocado toast. Why? Well, you see, montage is a big deal, and if you string 8 of these fuckers together, people are going to infer a through line, even if there's not one there. So what's the next scene? Well, Barbara and Delaney down on the planet taking water samples. right?
Hmm.
My favorite thing in admitting that you're the devil is realizing that, especially as you go through those 8 gates, I haven't shorthanded it, but do you know about the disaster relief runes?
I do not believe so.
So as a concept, it's almost like hobo sign, but essentially you make a big X and you write things here. Kind of like, have you seen the chemical codes on the back of tanker trucks?
Mhm.
It's similar to that, in that this is a middle registration point, and we have 4 ideas here now. And if you're seeing this, especially in this context, you'll know what these 4 things are. Oh, really? We hope. Oh, is the world shitty outside and these are spray painted on people's garages? This is this is probably a disaster relief seal. What does it say? I don't know. I'm not going to Google it. I just I want the idea of it. Because if we are going to suppose 8 different gates of story that you downhill ski into, I think that, and the other day this hit me at the park, I think they're more like whatever these beautiful Japanese trusses are called. Do you even know? You know what I'm talking about?
I think so. I'm not sure what they're called.
Now I need to draw one. I think this has turned into Lon Ranch, and I don't hate myself for saying so. Yeah, so I imagine them more like this, and what that is to say is they probably have a placard above them. And did you know that if devilry is a craft, God, I just said that. If being a cosmic asshole is a craft, you're the DJ of the shit show you're about to put on as you, like Loki, wrestle control of Greg's life and run it into the ground. You have to realize that there are difficulty settings and there are knobs and dials to this, and I think that's where you start to lock in some of these things. Is it's like, Greg might be really emotional, but what's at stake in the scene? Well, not much. But, emotionally, he's off the rails. It's like, well, how does this affect the next scene? How can we smartly, and some of these questions are genuine, I don't have the answers to them, but how can we look at a scene as an engine that we know? Well, a scene has an input, and it's a T-flip, because we normally will take whatever state you come in emotionally, and we're gonna multiply it by -1. Is this true? I think so, yeah. So we want it to go, a scene is at least as long as it takes from night to turn to day. I figured that out today in the grand baby shit metaphor of it all. But then you have to have you come out of it, and suddenly it's like, the other thing that a lot of people will say is it's a switch from action to reaction. So a scene is, hoo boy, we just got our asses kicked by the ninjas, or at the big game, or by the accounting team. Like, it's all wacky Mad Libs when you really deconstruct writing too far. So, who did we just get owned by? We'll make it some sports team. The Indigo Ninjas. Alright, that's sexy. But we just got owned by them. We're referencing where we just came from, because if you got to see it, then cool. But if we're just here for after the commercial break, then we're just going to say what happened. You don't need to read that chapter. That's one of those that we made you pay $2.99 for. It was probably one of the MA rated chapters. I don't know if you've thought about compartmentalizing your content in that way either. I've had more than a few friends really nudge me and say that I should take my art into the naughty sphere, because there's a lot of money to be made, and I'm going, dudes, I'm barely learning how to draw chicks. Let's get good at one thing and then decide where my life is at that point. But yeah, there's really no harm in the vaudeville shit show of literally walking on the stage and saying, "Whoo boy, this just happened. I'm telling you." What do we need to see it? No. It's just context clues for the shit that's about to happen. because we came from nowhere and we got to go somewhere after this, right?
Mhm.
But we don't, because that's the other thing you don't have to that you need to remember is the next scene. You never have to go there. So if we boxed ourselves into a room and we realized that we really painted it our damn selves, and this it really just becomes, every story becomes man versus self, which is the son of a bitch that you don't want to say too loud. Because it's like, damn, how did they process their thoughts about what just happened? This is why you get those reactive scenes. Do you favor those? Where it's like, because you get a lot of self-therapy even from a third point of view in those. It's like, yeah, we just got our asses kicked by the ninjas, but let's talk through it. Let's heal from it. Let's make sure it never happens again.
I mean, I like to do it big. It's like there's value to having that kind.
I come from a military household, and I use that lingo with my wife sometimes after a situation or even seeing a really cool fucking movie. It's like, important, and sometimes you can dedicate a whole scene to it structurally or even in but the briefing and the debriefing are important, like even in project management. Let's talk about how we want it to go. It went. Now let's talk about how it went, and how would we do we want to do that again? Do we want to do more of that? Do we want to do it again but better? Like, I don't know, what do we do? We're not telling that story. Let's just talk about how it went. Do you come from a theater background much, or have a respect, an informed respect of? Wow, I really just drew all over my drawing. What am I thinking? Improv, the ability to just.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm not from that kind of background, and I wouldn't say I'm particularly informed, but it sure seems like, from what little I understand of how that all works, it sure does seem like something that I can respect the work that goes into it.
C3PO was like, always telling people the odds.
Mm.
And that was shitty generally, right? You get the meme, the idea where I'm going
Yeah.
with that.
Mm.
I think that improv is, let me back up and talk about a word. If I say the word gonzo, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Even from trope land. So you and I are on the same page. What would you say gonzo means to the viewers at home? Because let's remember, this is a live show. Wink. He said as he remembered it was a live show. You're allowed to read. If you can make the clacky noise, it's not happening. We don't know. You can go look it up. But if you know it off your head, bonus points.
I'm distracted with a couple of things that I'm fiddling with, and I'm not remembering right now. I'm sorry, I get distracted easily.
So gonzo means things that are silly. Or especially out of the blue. Like, where did that come from? And so I would think gonzo is kind of the enemy at first to the uneducated of improv. And even a story crafter who doesn't know where he is, like he feels lost in the wood. I like chaos magic. Because this is about, to me, in my esoteric understanding of how the world works, potential energy. And where I'm going with this is gonzo is the enemy of whatever those odds are. C3PO has figured out all the storylines and has run a logic map through his head and says the odds of this happening are this. it's great actually as a storyteller, because when you feel lost in the woods, two things they preach: have the motherfucking ninjas attack. It's always an option, especially when you're role playing, but even in other storytelling. If you feel lost, have the shit hit the fan sooner than expected, because time is always a variable. We should do that sometime and talk about quantifying the variables, the different knobs the devil has to twist in the story. But the conflict is definitely one of those. And it's like, you thought you were at the 3 o'clock hour. Well, you know, in fact, they do this all the time at those dumb cake shows. It's like, well, too bad, bitches, because you now have 1 hour to finish your cakes. It's like, why? Because we wanted to. Just to turn up the heat. What? So that could be pretty gonzo. But in Cowboy Bebop, and I keep coming back to this because this is when I was sensitive to noticing it, they have a dude who shows up, and he was in a previous episode as an idea. Maybe it's the same episode because they are very well contained. Have you ever watched Cowboy Bebop?
I have.
Affirmative or negative?
Yes.
All right. Cowboy Bebop is your noir story. It is your Pulp Fiction. Look at it through that lens. There's your 6,000 words. I don't need backstory, and there's a high chance that you don't even get to tie any thematic sinew from this story to the next thing you're going to write. But write this and get it out. Whoa. So, yeah, they tend to be self-contained, drop in, drop out. Wow, that was fun enough. But when you really think about it, they have the one character, and he's fat. And he was skinny earlier. And it seems gonzo. And you're wondering, where is this coming from? That's fucking weird. Two things. One thing that dawned on me the other night, it's a slight homage to Total Recall, I think. But he says, I'm paraphrasing awfully, but the gist of the thing is, the dude's running from the law, and he has had a friend of his cut him open, because that's the normal. What I'm about to say is normal. When you're running from the law, you have different body modification options, and so he basically just got a fat suit installed for a large amount of credits and a great amount of pain to his physical body. So he told you that there's a cost, a physical cost, probably a mental anguish cost, but he went through all this because it's worth him to keep running from the law. And he says all this in like one sentence, and that's also the power of hand-wavium. But I think the hand-wavium, the magic of hand-wavium, falls apart if you're unlearned and can't think of good, likely things to say within the construct of your own weird world that you made. So all that is to say, kind of like Moore's Law, it's like, once you set up your world, your sandbox, and define a few of the troubles from a few different vectors, which is why I love having a physical map. Trouble with a capital T is super important even in my Fate game, but once you have a sandbox and you define some troubles, where's the story? This is why I respect Majora kind of leaning on slice of life stories. It's like, well, the story, to be honest, is whatever can go wrong will. People don't like hearing that. They want to make it about an epic thing. But what went wrong with your shitty life yesterday, Majora? And then or the day before that? And so this is kind of where I was talking to this dude where when a hot rain is it's a novelty at first, but sometimes it starts to get a little cold, and you're happy that the conversation is ending. So one of the dudes who followed me tonight, I didn't get to really say goodbye properly to him, but you notice yourself really trying to hold on to an idea as it's slipping away from you. I have no idea what I was talking about just now. And here I am, stuck with the easily distracted guy, so there's no way to even know if he's listening.
I I'm sorry. I don't want to be like cutting in all the time. I don't want to like steamroll you on accident or anything.
There is no such thing. At the very least, you are to be my Andy. I don't know if you know of like the late night talk show format in general or its tropes, but it's like
Okay.
a voice in the wilderness.
Hmm.
It's less impressive if he talks to himself all the time than he looks like a nutter. Yeah.
Uh, Probably the best way I could kind of illustrate the way that my first story project ended up with that whole slice of life kind of way of illustrating adventures. It's like it's like five novels and like a dozen novellas all connected to the same central. Over 300 some named characters. Would you like to guess how many of them consciously experience the actual overarching conflict of the whole story?
Let me give you the benefit of the doubt and shoot high and say 12.
You are shooting very high.
All right. Eight was going to be my next guess, but
It's less than half a dozen.
yeah, okay. I mean, I've studied the idea of an ensemble cast quite a bit, and I would say, you know, there are 4 Ninja Turtles for a reason, kids, and you also do the thing with them where through time and experience they can become more, but essentially in your head they are their tropes. They're a little two-dimensional because that's the role you
I mean, yeah,
fill.
of course. With how many characters there are definitely characters.
I mean,
Absolutely.
and that's not a bad way to do it if you're sophomoric in as much as have never even told a story before. So you're like, how do I do it? I don't want to be cliche. And here's what I would say to every student in the whole world. Strut your shit and be cliche, because the stuff you write out of writing anything at all is better than what you didn't write out of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I mean, this is just what my first ever like novel project turned into. It turned into just a whole bunch of, it's like a revolving door. People being alive sometimes, dead some other times. Sometimes they're dead, sometimes they're not. I specifically made a point to
You broke up. We lost the signal. Please repoint the array to sectors 7, 0, 13, H. We'll see. We're repointing the dishes, folks. Sometimes you gotta clean the dish. My wife hates to clean the dish. So yeah, this has become some kind of Lon Ranch. What is some through lines? Because we're going to compare and contrast stories here, folks. This is one of my longer episodes because it's just become about good conversation.
Oh, there we go. Discord's back.
That's right. Yep, here he
Discord
is.
came back.
The satellite is over the position, and that's the way it is, folks. They say that the future of technology is sending man straight up, and then he will be able to halo down onto the planet anywhere he wants to go within a 15-minute window. That's the kind of stuff that gives me mahogany, if we're sharing a little oversharing at this hour.
But yeah, that's just the general idea of how that is.
So
to
do
better illustrate.
you find yourself actually doing that? Kind of like, all right, well, no, there's no harm in admitting it, but what can go wrong? Whatever will. Like, okay, I've already fenced myself in beautifully. I know the fence. Better the fence. Better being fenced in when you know it, because it was of your own design. Yeah.
I know. I ran into that once when I wrote my second novel. It was the most unbelievably dumb thing I ever did, but I just ran with it.
Well, let's get this over with, right? It's like, I'm gonna keep typing these words.
I had a protagonist who his whole thing was that he could just imitate and steal other people's magic and just take it for himself. He can do that.
Now, are you
And
of the
one of the
Brandon Sanderson school where you got to create rules for this stuff so that you're consistent?
Sometimes. In my original story, I was not consistent.
Not consistently. I'm not about this rule. That is about
not
consistent. Right?
I'm trying to be more consistent
That's
about
awesome.
it in my current story. But
Right.
I just did whatever I felt like in my first story.
I know some authors and even game masters have the folio of like, well, I've decided to sit down today and decide how does green magic really work in my world, like, and I've had to do some of that when I'm moving from a fantasy sphere to something that's fantasy to them. I remember that like the Shakespeare time, those people their fan fiction was all about like the Greek gods and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I have to write fantasy in a fantasy, these goods are going to end up right.
The simplest way I could possibly explain this series of mistakes, I made a protagonist who could steal other people's magic powers. I made an antagonist whose magic power was that they were basically unkillable. I let the protagonist steal that power, and I literally just had to, at some point, realize I just made a protagonist invincible. And I now need to basically look at another antagonist and go, you now have the power to specifically kill that invincible antagonist from earlier, so that I have a way to get rid of this invincible protagonist.
I don't see a problem with that, because that could be an interesting story. We get into big words like the role-playing game system I use has an alphabet where you can design a character from the top down quickly. And C stands for conviction. And I bring that up because, we were even talking about you're a chill dude. And it's like, all right, fine, that's the way you wanted to make him. But at some point, how does that become non-gonzo? Do you have well, his aunt was super chill, and she taught him the way of chilldom. Like, how did he end up being this way? Where did he learn the conviction of, if nothing else, his nihilism? Like, well, you're going to get fucked by somebody, so might as well be the big bad guy. No, I'm not going to kill him. I kill him, and what good does that do? Yeah, like, and that's the passivity that I'm trying to learn. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That is not the direction I took.
Yeah, because that's the fate. That's the mask he had to wear, right, in front of some of his friends. Right?
Yeah, no, he
no, of course I wanted to kill this.
Like this is like jumping back to way earlier when I was originally talking about that, but like no, he ended up getting the excuse to go to the city to investigate that governor, and he just looks at his partner and he's like, we're not investigating anything. I'm walking into that man's house and I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, I mean, and woe be to him the fact that he even let his mask slip at that point, because
he didn't even bother putting it back on for the rest of that whole sequence. It's off the rail now. It's serious. Yeah. He just storms into that guy's house, and like after a whole bunch of ridiculous nonsense unfolds involving a whole other bunch of stuff, he just takes that man out to the shed behind his house, and they have a heart-to-heart conversation with a hammer.
Yeah, bless her heart, but my wife absolutely loved everything about the Punisher series on Netflix, because again, at that point, you're telling me that he stopped the pretense and became a man of action.
And that's just how it was. And then he after basically
this is where you cue Tom Waits.
He basically mangled this man's hand with a claw hammer, and then left him to burn alive in his gardening shed, and then just left. He put that mask of being a calm, nice person back on.
I've had days like that. See, so if nothing else, so the new, I've tumbled along with it, but the new, if it didn't become this, what you see here, this almost became Wizards with Gats. And Wizards with Gats You know, basically 4 old farts who hang out and they bitch about life, and they know these
Mhm.
spells. But these spells, they're real about these spells, and so they don't cast magic often because they understand the cosmic churn that all magic has a price, and it's normally negative from a human point of view. You cannot
Mhm.
wield it and not, at the very least, fuck up your body and shave some years off your life. But you can still throw
Yeah.
Molotov cocktails, and you can still load bullets in the magazine. Like, yeah, you're a wizard. You know any
I,
magic? It's not for your fucking birthday, kid.
I,
This is like when my uncle screws me in the 4th chapter of my life out of my inheritance. I know the wail to make to curse my own land into a blight. You don't wield that shit. Like, whoa, dude. Yeah, for everything else, there's guns. Like, man has come along. The wizards with gats are willing to use a lot of the tools that man's already using. It's just, they have those 2 or 3 times in their lifetime that they're like, who knew it was Black Wednesday? That's not a thing. It is today. Write it on the friend. Write it on the calendar, Greg. Oh, shit, really? Yeah.
but as weird as that, as like kind of wild as that whole circumstance may sound, I'm really proud of how it turned out because I managed to apparently not go too wild with how I handled his transitions as a character. And while my first person reading this story was like, I thought this guy seemed like a really nice and chill person, but now I don't know how
It's
I
a
feel
bit
about what kind.
hard.
I don't know how I feel about what kind of person he
It's
is.
a bit
When he
dark.
when he took this guy out and basically tortured him and killed him in a fire, and you can't really look at someone the same way after you say that.
No, you're completely right and here's again where, as the author, you control different degrees of difficulty. I say, if you're going to roleplay at my table, I'm willing to have mature roleplay, which is to say that we don't shy away from certain acts. That is to say, if it makes sense. I'm willing to explore adult themes, but I don't seek erotic roleplay. Now, why is he talking about this? Well, the point is I say cinematically, if you have a, a partner that you're going to sleep with in the story, I'm not saying you can't. I'm
Which
saying
like
we have a actual rubric to say that when this happens, we allude to it. We might even show the aftermath of it. But depending on the kind of story we're telling, we don't have to center the camera on it for too long. So, you as an author, and I'm happy I'm ignorant about your story in this way, which is to say, did you choose to describe the viscera? I mean, they say, well, I cannot see him the same way anymore. Well, how much of it do you see
um
through the lens of the camera that you leave on?
I I tried to keep the lens specifically on what at this point in the story it was on this character in question. So I went in detail on like him basically ruining this man's hand with a hammer because this is something he's just doing to prove a point. He's just trying to exert raw angry violence on this man.
Okay, if a
But
scene
then,
is a state machine for emotional change, do you go into the social or spiritual aspect of it? Though, what it, do you call it orgasmic bliss when he finally gets what he wants?
um,
Is he happy that he's torturing this guy?
it goes up very sharply in intensity at this point, but then it just kind of tempers out and he realizes, like, I have other things that I need to do. And at the end of the day, as much as I hate this man, I don't value him as much as I value my time. And at this point, the level of attention changes as he's just like, I'm going to set this shed on fire and I'm going to leave him to burn to death. And that got almost no attention because, as the person with the perspective, he doesn't care.
Do you end the story shortly after that?
I do not end the story. I ended like that was like part of a chapter.
Because I was going to say, this is an excellent time to like see the whole, reversal like, oh, what a twist, and then you end it there, and then the next story might not necessarily even be about him. So do you leave him off a camera for a while?
Yeah, he is off camera for a while. We transition after that to the protagonist of the story and what they're doing in a completely different city. And what's happened with him is like a completely different thing that involves a whole other issue with like the world building.
Yeah, okay.
Like it was focused around the fact that in this setting, the moon, like in general, the moon seems to cause this weird kind of psychosis in people who are exposed to moonlight.
All people, or people from across the
All,
wall, or
all people,
all right.
even on multiple. The realization is even underlined by the protagonist as somebody who ends up on two different planets in the first book. Why do two different planets with two different moons both get this weird psychosis from being exposed to moonlight? Why is that a shared phenomenon?
Because you wanted me to draw a fucking creepy moon tonight. And I forgot that that's a very fucking intricate part of the Majora's Mask, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, we need a big creepy moon.
But I mean, like that's just like a thing that I drew attention to. It's like that's what that whole thing with the protagonist is about, where he's trying to basically fight going through this psychotic episode, basically.
Oh yeah.
So like it transitions from this guy having this basic torture porn, self-indulgent thing, killing this guy who is, to the protagonist having an advanced psychotic episode while a riot is happening.
So RimWorld actually touches on that, and I love it because in the deck of cards it'll give you now and then it'll say, "All right, it's a Tuesday, and everyone has a gender." And sometimes the wacky Mad Lib of the event designer says a gender-based psychic buff or debuff to everyone in this hemisphere of the planet. It's like what? And so yeah, that can be a thing. So then, does he, as a result of this, is he forgiven some of his sins because it happened so close to the Great Break?
Like with regards to which,
I mean, people know that he straight up fucking killed this dude, right?
essentially what happens is he returns and reports what happened, and the king of this whole setting, he just kind of looks at him and he just goes, I'm partially at fault for letting this even happen in the first place. I'm not going to hold you accountable in a negative light because what he did and what he has done is worse than you taking him out back in his shed and basically executing him. I'm willing to say and tell people that that was me one.
Oh yeah, so then that's the other thing too. Is I mean, does the zeitgeist own up to it at all? Like, is it in the public record that this dude is dead and how he died, or oh, freak accident is in his own shed? Oh, bummer.
No, they're just like, no, it would have gone on the record that this man, on the king's orders, just went to this man's house and murdered him.
Yeah.
Which, like, sometimes that happens.
All right, it took 17 years, but Major Fuck Killer's finally dead because this dude burned him alive. Creepy moon.
On the other hand, though, on the other note of the protagonist who just has basically a really ridiculous hallucinogenic episode while a riot is happening, there's basically no one can look at him the same way after that, because there's this whole thing that becomes clear to the general public as he's having a psychotic episode. We have an alien from another planet running around having a hallucinogenic violent fit, and they kill 40 people. all of them are rioters, but they killed like 40 people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, are there? So I've seen like even the Departed. Marvel did some of that. Are there support groups and city programs for people who went through this awful psychic surge?
No,
Like how do
no.
they? How does the public handle? Like
The
they
way the
handle it
public
poorly.
responds to it is for several generations, people who have this illness have been quarantined across the wall for multiple generations, and no one wants anything to do with it.
Gotcha. Rock on.
And there certainly aren't support groups for aliens, so to have an alien from another planet running down the streets screaming about things that they're
So is it
losing.
made known that he's an alien when he literally takes his mask off?
It is not known until that point. Like publicly, he had never removed his mask in a public place.
So you're talking about even a physical mask? Because earlier I was
Yeah.
just talking about the masquerade of his bullshit.
No,
Like, hey,
he is physically, he is very physically disguising his appearance because he is very obviously not like the same species as anyone else.
Yeah.
And like they're trying to cart him back from another incident where he had gotten shot, basically. And like we need to like sneak him back to the palace, basically, for emergency medical care. And then they just kind of run into riots on the way back into the city that are.
Yeah, that's cool.
Then,
I love that kind of environmental. At that point, that is a man versus nature story. This is like.
And he just snaps up, snaps awake, and he just goes nuts because of like some character stuff I delved into a bit in this story. A lot of his like psychotic episodes are basically triggered by gunfire. So like highly unfortunate, but a bunch of people shooting guns off and starting a riot basically triggered him to snap out of having a gun wound and go on.
Yeah, I mean it makes some sense. Composition.
And like and like after that, it's just like, while you totally helped us do so much stuff that has benefited us as a country, you have to understand.
I mean, come on, you are dirty aliens.
The general public cannot handle the fact that you are an alien who went nuts and killed 40 people in the streets.
So did the protagonist actually kill the 40 people?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood that. I thought that the rioters in general happened to kill.
No, he killed he killed 30 some rioters.
Oh,
and
that's
a couple of people on the previous job. And like the general public, they didn't really care that all the people killed were rioters. Because the fact of the matter is,
but you also killed 4 stormtroopers, and now he can't have that. I mean,
like, no, the distracting element is the fact inherently that you have something from another planet.
Yeah.
Which what the hell? And they're just like, running down, killing people with their bare hands.
I mean, you're so fucking chill, right? You understand? Wink, nudge.
They don't trust like that. Even if all the people who died were rioters, they're just like,
look, mate, you did us a solid, but can't look the other way. You're an alien.
I mean, like the king isn't like, I'm gonna punish you for what you did, but he's also like, I literally can't have you working for me for the public because they're.
You know how it is.
Yeah. So he's just like, I'm just going to keep
my
you
hands
safe
are tied.
So he's just kind of like, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep anyone from
Computer
like, trying to kill
says no.
Until, someone from his planet comes by to pick him up or something, because they're just like, I don't know where you came from, what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue of him accidentally getting sent into space and landing on the planet.
Well, as you do with a protagonist, you gotta send them fun places.
Needless to say, at least one thing happens between him getting involved in a revolutionary group and getting put on a spaceship and sent into space.
Yeah, man. Some of my favorite stuff in the Marvel movies is the, what do they call that? Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, because it allows you to have a little more fun, but also realistically, it shows you a slightly bigger picture view.
Mm.
And secretly, I have a crush on anything that has a spaceship in it. Like, you want to get in my good graces?
Yeah.
Throw in spaceships. I don't even care. Like, transcend the Gonzo reason. Like, I mean, at some point, aliens are aliens, so. Yeah.
This actually is a total random aside mentioning spaceships. This was something I'd realized writing my first stories, was there were some really weird things that I had never written before, despite the pretense of my original stories. Things like actual space travel. I had just never written because a lot of travel was like magically based. So when people
sure, yeah.
people traveling between different universes with portals, nobody goes to space.
Yeah, one of my favorite series of books, I gotta look this up, is about the opening scene. Basically is like a very beautiful propaganda shot of basically say that Elon Musk is hot shit and he lands on Mars 22 years from now. You could buy that, right? You know who Elon Musk is?
Yeah.
All right. So, 22 years from now, he gets his space program, government approved, the right people are given the hand jobs, the technology are figured out. He's going, and him and his 4 sexiest co-pilots go to Mars. Well, as they're landing and his drones are flying around filming it all, a big shimmery blue door opens up out of nowhere and 2 teenagers step out of MIT and go, "We finally got the thing calibrated. Come on home, boys. It's a fuck ton cheaper to have you step into my mom's basement than to even think about bringing any of this outdated shit home." And the space program dies immediately because that's how the series of books starts. I'm like, whoa, here I am, a man who has a hard-on for spaceships. Where are you taking me? And it becomes a kind of a fantasy story in a way, that the one dude who figured out this math, he goes on he has a psychotic break because he's like, everything's baby shit. Basically, he's Jane Foster when she is shown the Rainbow Road. And so he figures out that reality is permeable, and these ancient cultures have had this way of walking the low roads. And if you stand at the right place at the right time of day, these people will come from one place and you'll just kind of get swept up in their caravan if you're ready for it. Or it's kind of like that moment that happens and you're like, you just got to go for it. Like, tonight's the night. You're moving to Kentucky. What? Like, if you tell them that at the beginning of the night, they'll get overwhelmed by the stress of it. But it's like, hey man, when you see the red chicken, tell her yes. What the fuck does that mean? You know, you just give them the clue, and it's like the clock strikes 3, and the girl, the hot girl in the Chester's chicken uniform is going, "So you want to go out back and talk or what?" Yes. Yes. I don't know why, but I know to say yes, because that's, you know, the threshold is open for just a minute, and you have to go when those moments present themselves. That's part of what I was talking about in the stream earlier is, you know, these moments when they present themselves, you don't travel with your head down or casually through such thresholds. They're not doors. They are runways. You have to feel the vibe, and you puff your chest up, and you might as well be a condor taking flight, because you're about, or you might as well be Rihanna about to walk out on stage, because, you know, get yourself psyched up. You're not, this is a transition from one place to another. What's the underworld? 2 guys kicking the shit out of you because you went back with the Chester's girl, because this is her Thursday night romp around. She does this to guys all the time right at close. All right, give me your wallet. What? See my brothers? They're about to beat the shit out of you if you don't just hand over your wallet. This is awful. But see, these are the baby shit kind of little scenes. It's like, what's true? Okay, then what else is true? So then naturally, what else is true? Naturally, I decided to be an ass and crank this up, and that's how he met her mother. What? He never get. Yeah. What do we got here, folks? Well, kind of. We haven't drawn any characters because Andrew's all about environments. But we have the dummies for a couple characters as stand-ins. It's good to look at that, kids, because I didn't realize that that one whole character was going to be taking up this beautiful little archway I made in the back. Composition. 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 Oh, frame that like I meant to do it. Alright, now the characters are not in the way of the important environment elements. Have you played any adventure games like Day of the Tentacle or Full Throttle?
I mean, I've played a good number of adventure games in general, yeah.
Cool. I can't really think of too many more, but it dawned on me last night when I was drawing this that this forced perspective that I'm hoping to stay in for a little while as I work on this children's book assignment feels like an adventure game to me. So much too, and I don't know how long you've been messing with PCs, but when I is this true? Let's see. One of these measurements happened the other night. Yeah, we just needed that whole thing. When I dumbed this down to 72 DPI, I said 360 is awful small for a damn picture about to go on Instagram. So even though you change the DPI, you can still beef it up some because you're still landing smaller than you started. So I said, well, why don't I just make that 640? And it landed at 480. Why does this matter, kids? Because before we had beautiful displays in every corner of our damn houses. We were gifted to have monitors at all. And one of the normal resolutions for games was 640 by 480. Like, get used to that. That's okay. Well, that gets you some things that are super sexy, like Full Throttle. The game. Let's not look at anything too porny. The game. The game. Hey, LucasArts. Let's fat finger this over the Zamboni. George Lucas. Game. You're hurting it. Stop it. Yeah. Now, why do I bring this up? Specifically for some shit just like this. Oh, is this a remastered? Full Throttle remastered? Did they do that? Why did they do that? When did they do that? I have so many questions. I don't want remastered. I specifically want the crappy version. Thank you. Alright. Ratios. Okay, we're off by a little bit, but you know, that's not too bad. If you don't measure a thing, how can you track a thing? So I have two things I want to look at. First of all, I wanted to look at this scene composition, which is something. It's not nothing. What? Yeah. Okay, look at this. We need something that'll stand out. Electric blue is a good color. How there's no real perspective here. There is a bullshit, deformed, beautiful stage. And they've got just enough of a line. It's like if you had proper perspective, but then came in and skewed it on purpose. Because these games were still supposed to be a little zany and designed and inspiring. It's not like, all right, well, let's just have some normal boxes. What? Also, this is in some chick's shop, so it's supposed to look eclectic. Yeah. I loved this style of adventure game, though. Did you ever play them when they were this low resolution, Majora?
What?
That sounded like a groan from under someone's bed. Are you okay?
I don't know what you were.
Oh, yeah.
I released the push to talk button to go make sure Twitch was still working.
Linsku says he'll be home in an hour. Cool. I hope I'm still trying.
Oh, I see.
Say again.
Yes.
That's great. I don't even know what I asked you, but that's
You
that's
just
okay.
asked me if I was familiar with like adventure games when they were at that resolution.
Nice. Yeah.
Admittedly, since it's getting a bit late for me, I'm probably going to be going for too much longer here. But before I do,
Well, as it stands, truth be told, and sorry to cut you off, we are hitting the 4-hour mark, and I normally don't stream past this, but I like the image as it started. And if nothing else, I got to spend some time hanging out with Majora.
true.
Drawing this thing, which is inspired by him and Lon Lon Ranch, apparently. Like, it's some somewhat scientific farmstead. I want to develop it farther. I don't hate it. Yeah, we gotta put some kind of awful fiddler or elf or something here exacting a price. I imagine there's a bargain. Like, gee, could you... You seem like you're magic. Could you help save the farm? It's like, yes. Yes, I could. But I want your sister's third child. She don't have any children. I'm not saying I want it today. This is a bargain so long in the making that 20 years from now you will have become complacent and didn't think I was serious about collecting.
Maybe so.
Can you save the farm or not, man? Oh, do you hear the dog barking? Yep.
Oh, yes, I do.
There's our joyful noise. If nothing else, we found it right at the end. That's normally how it is. Right as you see it coming, it's going, oh, so that's what it was all about.
Dog.
Dog.
That was actually the other thing that I was thinking of that I never actually put in my first books. Literally no character out of 300 that I would, nobody owned a pet, and I never realized how weird that actually is.
Okay, look, just for a second, we were talking about universal levelers. How much, and this is something that I've decided I am going to put into stories when I get back to writing. How many of your scenes are food porn?
I don't actually do that often. It's
okay.
Not
like, sitting down, eating, but it's like, yeah, they're eating, but of course, let's take a moment to describe what kind of food they like. And, they really...
I don't really do that very often. I haven't.
All right. There's some homework.
I don't consider myself quite good at illustrating that kind of scene.
Do you remember a little cheat sheet? Like one dude, he told me that it's like when in doubt, just buy yourself some time by delving into some of the other senses. Like, or he's like, you're looking for adjectives. Well, not everything is sight. How about you take 2 seconds to describe how did this thing smell? Because you haven't in a while said what something smells like. So then you buy yourself the, oh wow, he really does all the 5 senses. It's like, well, not normally. I just hadn't in a while and caught myself. So I don't want the moon to be the scary thing. I want there to be like some... Oh, wow. That horrible curve just went in. And some of these things are really like Bob Ross, especially if I don't have a project. But, yeah. And they live again. Meow, meow, meow. All right.
Oh, never mind. I think I know what that groan you heard earlier was. That was probably outside. I forgot I still have my window open. I should go close.
Hey, man, that's all right. We've got all kinds of audio issues here. It is a miracle that this whole thing worked at all. So,
it's true.
If we're ending the show on a high note, which is the only notes that I like, wink, where can you find me? I'm supposed to tell you things like go to the Instagram. I'm Incomitatum. On Facebook, when it loads, you might see that I am Andrew Chasen Design. On MeWe, I am Andrew Chasen, because that's my name. And yeah, go find me. If you're a real cool kid, you would have figured out how to get to the Discord. I think I published it below in the show notes, if there is such a thing. But that's all for tonight. This has been Into the Night with Incomitatum, episode 35. It's easier to make joyful noise when you've got good conversation. Do you have anything else you want to say? Plug yourself. Majora. Where can we find Majora?
I think I plugged my Wattpad before. That's all I really have.
Rock on. Majora writes books. Go find his cool books on Wattpad and be good to each other.